Oh shit, did I go live? I pressed the live button, I didn't even realize. God damn it. Damn. I pressed that shit too early. Oh well, we're here now. Um, yeah, I'm live now. I guess I'm live now. I was meant to be live in 5 minutes. I was trying to set something up, but I fucked it up by mistake. Yo, what's going on, Del? Del, did you want to jump in now, or did you want to wait till 7? Wait until everyone like powers in. What's going on, Kobe? Sloppy Bowl, Jeton. Can you imagine if I went live and I was not like, yeah, don't worry, I won't start the conversation until you get here. You could jump in whenever you're ready. There's no rush, bro. Even if you come a couple minutes late, it's fine. Can you imagine? I was getting changed just now as well. Sometimes I get changed in front of the camera. Like, maybe I should put that shit down. someone's gonna, someone's gonna take a picture. That's gonna be the end for me. You missed the stream yesterday. Stream yesterday was good fun, man. We had some fun yesterday. I lost to Ruse 5-3. Sadly, it was a depressing defeat. But I played some of my worst Tekken, so you know 5-3 is not that bad considering he uses a broken character. But we're not here to talk about Dragunov today. I'm not gonna start bitching about that character again. If I click on your live and it's you getting changed, now don't worry, I'm gonna be more careful with it going forward. I didn't realize I pressed the live button. I was sitting here trying to set things up, and where do I work? That's confidential, bro. Can't be saying that online. So he finally admits Dragunov is broken. Did I say broken? Sorry, broken was the wrong word. Overpowered, not broken. Been working on your Cloudy. You better watch out. You know what? Yeah, considering I haven't played Tekken consistently for like 4 or 5 weeks now, I'm not doing too bad. Yeah, I went up against couple God of Destructions yesterday. Didn't do too bad. What's going on, Pauline? No need to apologize. All good. It's all good. Today's a different stream. I'm going to be talking with Del Walker, who I believe worked over at Naughty Dog and Rocksteady. I'm getting that right. Oh, man. And Discord looks so choppy. It doesn't look that choppy on YouTube. I think we're going to do a Tekken 7 stream. Where's my water? Yeah, we're going to do a Tekken 7 stream on Saturday, I think. Sunday will still be Tekken 8. Yeah. PS5 though, not PC. It's not crossplay, don't forget. What's going on, Dom? What's going on, Rich? Yeah, so you lot are going to be subjected to my Marduk. I actually do need to install it, now that I think about it. I need to get that shit installed. I was going to install Mortal Kombat 1 because Alexis had called me out, but she quickly retracted that because she realized, she was like, I don't want to mess with this guy. What's going on, J23? Yeah, not doing too bad, man. Tekken 7 is still 80 gigs. Oh my god. I'm gonna have to clear out some space for it to do the stream. That's annoying. She's still dodging. Yeah, she don't want this smoke, bro. She knew. She knew. Laying down that challenge to me was a bit crazy. Don't waste your time on Mortal Kombat. I wouldn't usually, not Mortal Kombat 1 anyway. I wouldn't usually, but she was offering me $150, and I was like, $150 to beat you in one game. Sounds like a good bet to me. So I took it, but then she tapped out, which I was disappointed about. I text my boys in the group chat. I was like, boys, we're gonna take a cheeky trip down to Amsterdam for the day. It's on me. It's very cheap to fly from London to Amsterdam, so I texted them. I was like, we're going to Amsterdam, guys. But that quickly got dispelled. What am I gonna do if I lose? Nothing. She said that she doesn't want anything from me. She said she wants nothing, so I was like, this is a win-win situation. If I lose, it's like I lose on Tekken on stream every week, right? If I win, then I get a free trip to Amsterdam. Guys, do me a favor for this stream, because we're gonna have a guest on there. Please like the video if you're watching. I know I don't usually ask, but like the video just so it gets out there more, because it will be nice. Obviously, I know you guys are gonna have questions during the stream as well for Dell. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd greatly appreciate that. I've been so mad I'm missing your Tawny Sparking streams because I'm the US, and by the time you stream I'm just getting off and I missed the entry spots. Oh, sorry, bro. I mean, we're doing Sparking tomorrow at 7 p.m. Yeah, 7 p.m. So if you're about tomorrow, then jump on, bro. I wish it was cheap to travel in the US. It's expensive. I've heard it's very cheap for us to travel around in Europe. For me to go, if I wanted to go to Amsterdam tonight, I'd probably pay like 30-40 pounds, which is like cheaper to go to Amsterdam from London than it is to go to some other places in the UK. It looks down from skyscraper. Oh god, here we go. Get out of here, Ruse. You're too young to be understanding what this conversation is going to be about today anyway. I'm trying to show them low class Saiyan hands. Are you using Bardock or Raditz? Yeah, I'm going to Greece this month for 3 days, and we paid £80 for our flight, and then we paid £100 each for a hotel, which is pretty cheap. Yes, didn't really cost us much at all. And we did it last minute as well. If we did it earlier, we would have got it cheaper. Raditz and Nappa. It's not bad. Nappa's good though, and Raditz is good as well. Actually, I've got Raditz on one of my teams. Raditz is people are sleeping on him. He came back from. Oh, okay, nice, yeah. Nappa is an elite, but okay, yeah. No, Nappa Raditz is good, man, and he's got that sparking stuff as well, the full power stuff. Free skill points. You go straight into sparking. You know, Raditz and Nappa are good. They're low class by name, but they're definitely strong characters. The DP system in Sparking Zero, in my opinion, is wrong. They've done it all wrong. I understand what their logic was, but they've done it all wrong in my opinion. I think instead of nerfing and buffing characters, they need to rework the DP system. Nappa is an elite in the show. I think he means in the grand scheme of things. In the grand scheme of things, obviously Nappa is he's a whatever. 5 points for Super Go. Yeah, crazy. 5 points for Goku Super. Crazy. Don't know what they were smoking. Bardock Instant Spark is an explosive wave. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, the DP system was crazy. This a Tekken stream or a Dragon Ball stream? No, bro, it's in the title. We're just waiting for Dell. I told him to take his time. He'll jump in when he's ready, and then we're gonna have a talk about. Well, I don't really know, to be honest. I've got a couple questions just off the cuff that I'm gonna ask. But just gonna be a free flowing conversation. Hello, Alexis. How are you? Future Gohan and Z Broly are the same DP, by the way. Z Broly's a diabolical character, man. That character's actually a mess. I apologize for yesterday. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. It's all good. Thanks to you, Ruse beat me up on stream for everyone to see. Well, you know what? In fairness to me, he was beating me quite badly, but I managed to bring it back 5-3, so it wasn't a complete wash. Thank you, Valix. I appreciate that, man. Thanks to you. Yeah, it was thanks to you. I had to step in. I had to step in because you and Titan didn't want to stand on business. You guys noticed, right? Because I'm doing a conversation with somebody today rather than playing a game. I've come dressed for the occasion. Well, the screen is dark, can't really see it. I'm wearing my berserk. You know, this is me coming fashionably dressed rather than sitting in a vest all the time. So I've had a couple people on my streams complaining, "Why are you always sitting on a vest? Why are you always sitting? We don't want to see your chest, man. We don't want to see your chest." I didn't realize it was such a hot topic. On topic now, what did Del Walker say that made people mad again? Del didn't say anything that made people. Well, actually, no, he didn't. He made one tweet that I want to ask him about, but I don't think he's ever made people mad. I think Del gets along with most people. I haven't seen too many things. I don't think I've seen anything where there's been fights breaking out. Maybe differences of opinions. I made it to Raijin last night. Oh, nice. With Asuzena. Nicely done. Should be easier to rank up with Asuzena now because she is not really being played by many people. So I'm guessing people are starting to forget the matchup. I do have a Dragon Ball and Street Fighter shirt. If you guys have any questions for Del, to not break up the conversation, I'll try to answer them at the end. Not at the end, but whenever we get to a Q&A section of the conversation. Do you know what people are really like fighting over online today? Fucking Dragon Age. Every time I sign on to Twitter, everyone's talking about Dragon Age. Everyone is talking about this game, and it just seems that I've not seen people at each other's necks this much, and we've seen people at each other's necks a lot. Dragon Age just seems like a war. Game's not for me. I'll just say that it's not for me. But if people are happy, people are happy. I mean, I saw some stuff. I'm gonna actually talk about something that I saw about on it today, and I wanted to get Dell's opinion on it. And I'm gonna warn you guys. Obviously, like we do a lot of Tekken and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero in here, and Street Fighter sometimes, and whatever else. But today's conversation might. I don't think it's gonna offend anyone, but we are going to be talking about a lot of the problems in the industry. I think that's probably where the conversation will go. Obviously, like I'm going to sit and talk to Dell like on a level, like just have a little bit of a mess around. But there are things that obviously I want to ask with Dell being in the industry, and I'm sure he's got things that he wants to ask me as well. Because I know some people don't, they can't understand where I really sit on the whole conversation. So hit me up on Discord. All right, 1 second, guys. Let me see if I can bring Dell in here. Let me just put this on there. You guys can still hear my voice. Let's see. Okay. Yo.
Is it working? Can
Yeah,
you hear
yeah,
me?
I can hear you. How you doing, man?
Okay. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, safe, bro.
Let me
Right,
just.
let me just make sure this is set up good.
What are these lot saying? Should be able to. There's a lot of Fujin players that are Tekken gods or higher. What's going on, Tay?
Yeah, man. Let's.
So how you
Yeah,
doing,
thanks
bro?
for.
How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for making time for me. I'm good. I'm good. I'm all right.
And
Yeah, just
how's your day
living.
been?
It's just started. Yeah, it's because I'm based in Los Angeles now. It's 11 a.m. here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I thought you
but
were in the UK because I saw your profile picture on Twitter and I recognized the background, like central
yeah, yeah,
London.
yeah, yeah. I'm still very London. I've been here a couple years, like what, like almost 3 years
Mm.
coming up to. But yeah, this place got me too late. They can't change me, so I'm still very London. So
Yeah, I've
if
heard that
yeah,
Londoners are well received up there. My boy's up there as well.
yeah. I think so. I think so. There's a bit of a culture of for you to be here. Well, first of all, you've seen it with acting, right? You've
Mm.
seen it with like Idris Elba, Daniel Kaluuya, like Damson Idris. They all had to come to the US to be big
Mm.
because I think there's a little bit more of a meritocracy with with people of color of all types. There's
Mm.
a little bit of like, especially if you have a British accent. If you have a British accent, it goes a little bit of like, oh, well, you must have studied in theater and stuff like that. And to be honest, there is a bit of truth to that. So I think there's just this weird, like, almost positive stereotype thing
Yeah,
that I'm
yeah.
just benefiting from.
Yeah. That's
Um,
exactly what he told me. He said it's almost literally the same thing. If you've got a certain accent and you're from London, you get treated a little bit better.
a little bit better.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there was anything in particular you wanted to ask me about, or like if you just want to have a general conversation about the industry. I've got questions I want to ask you as well. Um, if there's anything that you don't want to answer, then you just say I won't take any offense to it
So,
whatsoever.
um,
Um,
first off, before we start,
hmm,
I'm gonna explain something that might be. Yeah, I need to explain something because I have made an active effort not to talk to anyone about the games industry.
I saw.
Like, I even said, I'm not talking about this no more.
Hmm,
And even when I said that, the reason was distorted because I was basically like, I came to this conclusion that I need to stop talking about my perspectives on the game industry openly because it's only being used as fuel for bad faith actors. That was literally the only reason. I was just like, yo, I love discussion.
hmm.
I love back and forth. But I can't figure out who's sincere, who or even if someone is sincere, is their audience like just human, just regular people who just have like nuance to their thought process.
Yeah.
And the only reason, because there's going to be a lot of people that are quite pissed off that I'm talking to you over them. There's been a lot of people been trying to get me on podcasts, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like I almost reached out to you
Hmm.
because we have differing opinions. But I felt like I had watched you enough to be like, I'm certain this guy ain't racist. And I'm certain this guy isn't like a grifter.
Hmm.
And I'm really sure his audience just seem like they go outside.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to get to that point where I was just like, let me just have a chat with someone because I want to have chats. But
Yeah.
it took a while to find someone where I was like, yo, I don't care if this person has like 100,000 followers or 100 followers or whatever. I just wanted to get to a point where I'm like talking to someone about it because I like the back and forth, but there's no safe place to have a back and forth
Hmm.
online without real like like almost FBI levels of like investigative research on who you're talking to.
Yeah. So
So
have you had
anyway,
situations where like you've gone to speak to people and you felt like rather than having a conversation, it's turned into like an attack or like a probing session or the chat has like gone after you?
I've had people re- like I'm gonna say yeah, I'm gonna say some stuff here that's gonna sound mad. I have some people who's
Speak freely, bro.
literally taken what I've said. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, speak freely.
Yeah,
No, there's no
yeah.
need to.
I've taken what I've said, distorted it to make it seem like something else, then DM'd me to be like, oh, sorry, I said that, bro. You know, like I know you don't really mean it like that. I'm like,
Really?
fine, just delete it. Just
Mm.
delete it then. They're like, oh, but it's got a lot of views, you know, like this and that. Like so from then I was just like, oh, okay, I can actually see what's going on here. Where like you man just don't really have a spine. Like So
Has this been
once
like?
you're in that situation, it's tough.
Has this been like? Is this just like randomers taking your stuff, or is it like prominent creators on YouTube that have large audiences? You don't have to name names or anything like that.
Yeah. There's a reason why I'm not naming names because the the some are somewhat prominent. Yeah, I'd say prominent. Yeah, yeah, prominence definitely. Whether they're big on YouTube or big on Twitter, some people have literally been like very prominent. But there's a reason too why I'm not like, oh yeah, it was this person, because from what I've seen, there's no way to call out these people or respond to these people without it just become vitriolic. Like
Mm,
it's not like their own fan base are balanced people,
yeah.
you know?
No,
Like
I've been on the receiving end of that as well because I had a really good I felt like it was a pretty good conversation with Hypnotic not too long ago, but I went on to his chat afterwards and I was just looking and I was like, I can't even make heads and tails
right,
of what is going on right now. I
right,
can only
right,
imagine that if this was like real life, I would be in the middle and there would just be tomatoes being dashed at me from every.
right.
But Hypnotic wasn't like the issue, or a lot of the other people that I've spoken to are not the issue. It was, I get what you're saying, the chats can be a bit crazy sometimes, which I find funny personally. I didn't take any personal offense. I know it's just the internet, but you can't really have genuine conversations with people like that.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah.
So,
Anyway, I just wanted to kind of bring that into the discussion before we move on.
yeah,
But like
yeah.
that's where I'm thinking. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, so outside of that, was there anything that like you wanted to bring up to me, or any points that you wanted to like touch on before like I start asking you any questions?
I think it's gonna be a natural conversation where I will ask you like, what do you think of this,
Mm.
and you can expand on. But I don't want to be like, oh, I've got some hit pieces, blah 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 blah. It's more that I see that we have differing views,
Mm.
but I'd like to see where that leads to if we have an open conversation about it. Because I know you have a lot of issues with the game industry. Like you've said so repeatedly. I have these issues with the game industry. And you've even admitted sometimes you're not sure exactly the reason why XYZ is happening.
Mm.
You just know you don't like the result or like, and so there are things that I don't like about the game industry as well.
Mm.
But I'm I'm now no longer working for like a major company directly. Like I've worked with Warner Brothers, um, and DC, and they have certain things you're just not allowed to talk about openly.
Mm.
I've worked with Sony. PlayStation's the same. Actually, Sony's not as bad as Warner Brothers. People think like, oh, PlayStation, blah blah blah. PlayStation just like just don't talk about the games you've worked on too tough,
Mm.
and um, don't don't be deliberately antagonistic to fans.
Yeah,
Like, but it's a request. I feel like Warner Bros. Was a bit more
they're
like
militant.
don't. Yeah, yeah, they were
Yeah.
a bit more militant. Microsoft were cool when I worked with but then when I worked with Microsoft, that was before the internet. You're old enough to know the internet has changed very, very heavily, even
Mm.
in the last 2 to 3 years. Like, I don't know about the current Microsoft vibes, but before they were just a bit like, yeah, just don't be dumb.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Are they more like
um,
corporate suit type of stuff now, where like everything's got to be uniform?
no. In fact, it's the opposite
Oh, okay.
because they don't, they can't say too many. But basically, the difference is now, individuals have power, clout, and attention on them. I don't know which person made the character model for like Solid Snake or Metal Gear Solid 2 because they didn't have Twitter back then and etc. Blah blah blah. But now you can go online and find out, oh, who is the writer for this game, and
Mm.
then go on Twitter and they got like 50,000 followers in that.
Yeah.
So now the industry's in this weird place where the creators, the individual content creators, kind of have a little bit of a voice. So you can't go too mad on them. You can't be like, yeah, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like you can sort of when you're signing them up in the contract, you're like, hey, here's how things work here. But yeah, I feel like there's more. What's happened more so is you're seeing these companies withdraw in general, like less information.
Mm.
Like even the Tekken fans themselves, they're so lucky Harada talks as much as he does. He's weird.
Hey, do you think it's odd that
He's
he interacts with the fan base as much as he does?
I don't think it's odd. I think he's just got a lot of stamina.
Mm.
Because I don't think people even realize how much hate he gets. That they probably only see the positive stuff because he's choosing to reply to the positive stuff. But it can be really, really exhausting, like
Yeah.
super, super exhausting. And there's little benefit to it, really, um, to actually engage. It's good to listen. It's always good to listen.
Yeah.
Engaging, that's high risk. So
Is that something you've dealt with personally, where like you've
yeah.
engaged and it's just been like people are just spitting venom at you rather than having a conversation?
Yeah, like, but I think people think, oh, like people didn't like what you said. They called you N-word, this, blah, 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 cussed you out, but you can just like, you can just don't use the internet. It's like, yeah, but what happens when they hand out your email on like a white supremacist forum?
Mm.
And then what are you gonna do now? Are you still gonna be okay? All right, cool. You can handle that. What happens at the point where because of something you said, they're calling your workplace to say you should be fired? And it's not one of them, it's like 50 of them.
Mm.
All right, cool. What if they've kind of figured out exactly who you are and they've backtraced you to your old workplaces, or they find out who your spouse is, or they find out where your daughter goes to preschool?
People taking
Like,
it that far.
yes, bro. Yes, bro. And people will come online and be like, "Oh, he deleted his Twitter. He's a loser. He can't take it." I'm on the phone with him saying, "Like, bro, I'm done.
Mm.
Done." Someone emailed me where my child goes to nursery because I said something about a game they don't like. So I'm just like, "Yo, it's done, innit? It's done. You don't need to talk to them no more.
Yeah.
Forget the internet. Forget the fans." And you don't know how serious to take these people. From then, is that comes to a point where it's like, yeah, I don't think people realize how sick in the head some of this stuff is and how it gets. Like,
Can
I
I
don't
ask
think
you?
they really.
Can I ask you then, based on that, because now that my channel's like picked up a bit more steam and I've appeared on other people's channels,
Yeah,
I've not had any like serious stuff. I've had like stupid things where I'm just like whatever.
yeah, that's the
But
most of it, isn't it? That's
yeah,
most of it.
but what I wanted to ask you is that I've always had an issue with people coming online. There's been some people in the Tekken scene, for example, who have come online and said, I made these comments, I'm getting death threats now. And so I'll say to them, why are you protecting the people sending death threats? Do you expose them? Let me see the death threats. I'll put it on my channel. We'll expose
Yep,
these
yep, yep,
people. I
yep,
don't
yep,
think these people should be protected.
yep.
Has as in your case, have people sent you stuff and like you've reported to the police or you've exposed them on Twitter, or is that something that if you did that, it might reflect badly like with your work? Because I
No,
don't
I post
understand
that
why
stuff.
you
Yeah, I
post it.
post that stuff. Yeah, I post. I don't mind. To be honest, threaten me is fine. Threaten me all day is fine. As long as whatever, blah blah blah. Like,
Mm,
but I make light of it. Like I went maybe about last year. I went through a phase of like reposting the death threats, but like in kind of making light of it, like because it's like oh blah blah, we're gonna do this and that to you in my DMs. I was like, or they'd be like oh you're just a DEI hire, we should kill you, blah blah blah, and I'm just like. I'm not just a DEI hire. At least call me a talented DEI guy. Like there's some skills I don't mind.
yeah.
It's not that big for me. But there's a few factors here. Is the moment you make a decision that you're gonna go and try and report a anonymous Twitter profile, like there's two factors. One, are you it's not going nowhere really for the most part. It's because it's not it's like it could come few and far between. But another point is the moment you're like whenever I made light of it and made joke of it, I got more.
Mm,
I actually got more when I was just like, oh yeah, they said this, blah blah, blah. And then more of them would come, and I don't know, they have their private discords and that. And like I said, if they're friendly, me, it's like
mm,
whatever,
yeah.
like. But it's it doesn't feel like a good use of time if something hasn't really escalated to that point.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like a good user because it's hurting your vibe. It's
Mm,
like it's exhausting for your vibe, really, if you take it on.
yeah.
But
Have you
are you
seen
gonna go
this?
down, do like a police report, etc.? That's a long.
No, that's fair enough. I wouldn't go down the police report route unless like they were actually posting pictures of my house and like
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
it got to that part,
Exactly,
then
exactly.
that's a bit
You'd wait
mad.
for escalation.
Yeah, yeah. But would you say that this like vitriol that you've experienced has been exacerbated by association with Sweet Baby Inc?
Um, yes and no, because my association with Sweet Baby Inc. is that I worked on Suicide Squad at the same time Sweet Baby Inc. was formed effectively, because a few of the individuals from Sweet Baby Inc. worked on the game just as regular writers, and then I'd say 2 years before, so the story was written, the whole story was written, and the whole game was like laid out. Here's what Suicide Squad is going to be, and obviously there's edits as you're making the game, make some tweaks like, oh, maybe we should move that scene to here, blah blah blah. But the story was like down, locked. This is the story, like as it is going to play out. But the actual script was the thing that kind of began to be worked on. So it's like all the main points, chapter one, chapter two, blah blah blah. But the actual dialogue and the script that needed to be worked on. So some of the individuals who were working on that were freelance writers and in-house writers. And then I think I'm not really sure how Sweet Baby got formed. I just know that two or three people at the studio were at the beginning of forming it, and they continue to work on the game instead of being as individuals as part of the consultant company.
Hmm.
But their job was kind of the same. It was
Yeah.
basically just like you say, you work for the company, then you go make Hollow Ink, and then you come back and they're just invoicing a different company. Same shit,
Okay.
basically. But maybe they had more resources. And so I think what happened is two things happened. The game came out, and I was like, yo, safe to everyone else who like works on the game that I worked with, we're proud of the things we done. Even to this day, people might say like, oh, Suicide Squad didn't do too well, like in popularity. I'm like, that's objectively true. That's fine, but the character models I made, I think they look sick. So I'm gonna go around telling everybody I'm proud of the work I've worked on.
Hmm.
So I think like the Deadshot character looks like how I wanted him to look. I'm happy with the result.
Hmm.
Like you guys might say like, oh, that's not your vision, but I'm gonna make a decision to be proud of like what I did. But what ended up happening is this is the first iteration of like yeah, this is the first iteration is that he he I messaged no, I tweeted Kim when the game came out, because I posted that I was in Dead Shop, really proud, blah blah blah, and then she was like, oh, it's great working with you, and I was like, and I replied saying it was great working with you too, I know you helped a lot to make Deadshot what he is.
Hmm.
And then that was it. From then they were just like, oh, he's on the inside and he knows that she's the reason that he got race swapped. What that's objectively not true. The character was black long before Kim even jumped on the project. But what I meant when I said that was I know that she contributed to his dialogue.
Right.
Like it was the script may have originally had like a loose script, and she went in and was just like, that's not what a black guy would say, and changed it. So in my mind, you've also helped work on the project, and you've also helped make this character what it is. But from then, I think that's kind of when they was just like, he is allied with the evil villains. And then I was just like, oh yeah, cool. Like, whatever. Like,
All right,
you
so
know.
I want to ask you then, since you've worked with them, what is your opinion of Sweet Baby Inc. and how do you think that the way gamers are talking about them online, like I have my opinions of them based on
Yeah,
things
yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
seen, based on some of the tweets that I've seen. I know you've seen some of my content, so I don't really appreciate some of the stuff that they tweet out. But what do
Mhm.
you think about the general discourse around Sweet Baby Inc. and what was your experience? What's your takeaway from working with them? Do you think that they're good for the industry, or do you think that gamers are right to be annoyed at them?
Uh, I think a lot of gamers are right to be upset about some things. I just don't think they understand what Sweet Baby do. So they they often assign things they don't like to say that's Sweet Baby's fault. And I just find that really weird. Because I don't believe in a world where you're absolved of criticism, no matter who you are. Like, but when someone's saying yeah, the reason YouTube is terrible now is because of Mike Hollow. It's like what you're saying, and like they're not. It's not that what you're saying like is just false. It's like the problem is you might have a valid criticism of YouTube, and you actually might have a valid criticism of Mike Hollow, but what you're connecting them to doesn't make any sense. So
Okay.
I think first off, that bit's just really, really strange because I almost want to ask, but then what I also said is the reason why I didn't want to talk about this anymore was because there was no one in good faith that was just like, let's just have a chat.
Mm.
Like, let's just have a chat. But I can only ever talk from my experience is the work that I saw those writers do was like, that's sick. Like, that's good. But then the things people have issues with was like, that wasn't nothing to do with them. That didn't even make sense. That's why I actually had an article in Forbes
Yeah.
that where I was getting really pissed off. But the reason I was getting pissed off was because everyone was attacking um straight up people were attacking a black woman about something she didn't do, and the company that had worked for wasn't coming out and saying but she didn't do that. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna just say
Is this
exactly.
Kim you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so I was just coming from the I was coming from the point of view of that's not true, because the big thing was that kind of got me heat was people saying Sweet Baby are the reasons this and this happened in the game Suicide Squad, and they ruined it. And I said, actually, 2 years before Sweet Baby was created, this, that, and this, the things you didn't like were already in the story before she was even hired. But I was like, if you've got a legit criticism, I'll be like, yeah, man, criticize. Like that's critique is good.
Hmm.
Critique is good. That's how I got good as an artist.
How do you feel about so there's an individual that I was watching. I don't believe she works with Sweet Baby Inc. anymore, but I know she's working on the Black Panther game. Danny Lalondas. And she put out a video came out of her saying that she has basically purposefully excluded white people from working on her team to protect her team. And when I saw that, I was a bit like, if that was the other way around, that would be people would be in an uproar about that. So I don't know if you've had any interactions with her, but people are basically like boycotting Black Panther off the back of that. I've I'm not gonna name anyone just because again they asked to remain anonymous, but I did speak to some people that are in the UK side of the industry, and they thought that people were ridiculous for doing that. I disagree. I think if you're gonna put out a video and you're saying that white people and having white people in the workplace is going to be unsafe for black people. First of all, it makes us sound like wet blankets. And
Mhm.
I also don't understand what would be wrong with having white people working on Black Panther, considering it was created by two white guys in the first place. What are your? I don't know if you've had any interactions with Danny. What are your thoughts on that and gamers' reactions to boycotting Black Panther based on what she said?
I can speak about this as an outsider because I didn't get to work with I didn't get to work on Black Panther, like, and I've never worked with Danny.
Hmm.
Um I can't try and defend that statement because I personally don't believe in it. Like, I don't believe in any world where you have to protect. Actually, that's not true. I do believe in objectively excluding some people if they're bringing harm. Like, if I know you have a history of sexual assault, you're not on my team, bro.
Oh,
You're
of
not
course, of
like you're
course.
like. But I'm just saying anything with it where it's not objective like harm.
Hmm.
I don't believe in a I don't believe in that statement, and I actually think that's it's a crazy statement. But I also come from the point of view that people should be free to boycott anything, um, but people should be allowed to be critiqued on why they're boycotting something, which is kind of, I don't want to jump off the subject, which kind of brought me to when people decided they were gonna like boycott any more DLC for Tekken, blah blah blah. And I kind of was just like, you can do that, but I'm just letting you know, like, I don't think that's a wise thing to do, etc. Blah blah blah. I think everyone should be open to critique. So
Is that a general
I
culture
think,
at Sweet Baby though? Is that
pardon?
is what Danny expressed in that video? Is that the general mindset of Sweet Baby and their views towards white people or white men? Because I've seen a couple tweets from people that still work there. That I obviously I'm half Greek, right, and my
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
family are
yeah.
Irish and all that. So I took offense to them saying making comments about white people as well. And so is that like a general sentiment in that workplace towards white people? Is that just something Danny feels?
I'm I'm sure that a few things happened. I think one, no. From what I've seen, no. I haven't seen any of this nonsense of like if you're white, you can't be here, blah 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 blah. Even how I'm trying to word this, I'm trying to word this in a way that I'm covering all bases. Even now, you got people in the chat saying he got silenced on Twitter when I already explained when we started the conversation why I decided I'm not going to talk about black representation as much anymore was because grifters keep twisting it. I have to be really careful to explain everything I see because people chat shit.
Mm.
So one of the first things that I was saying was, yeah, I think personally Danny's talking about herself for one, and that is one of the things that I think isn't quite fair. Is that you people should be responsible for their own statements. I personally don't agree with that statement. I
Mm.
think that state, to be honest, I don't even know if there's more context to it. Whether it was just like, oh, I wouldn't work with these purple people for this reason, blah blah blah, on this particular game. I don't know, but I'm saying that statement in isolation, because I haven't even watched the video. That statement on its own, I don't agree with. But also, I am so sure that that's not the culture of the people I worked with at Sweet Baby. And I say worked with, I worked alongside them. But I also don't really get much benefit from saying that statement unless it's for someone to someone like you.
Mm.
Because even me saying that statement, like that doesn't sound like any of the people I worked with. Like that doesn't sound like at all the representation of people I work with. All that opens up is here's this guy chatting shit, blah 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 blah. There's people in your chat even doing it right now. But I had to come to you because I knew that your most of your audience is at least willing to hear my point of view.
Yeah,
So I agree with you that that statement objectively, I don't like it.
yeah,
I don't like. I got white people in my family. It doesn't make any sense. Forget if I got white people in my family. Forget if I got Chinese. Forget if there's any person being excluded. I just don't. That's just mad to me. But I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. Did Danny apologize for that? I don't know.
no, she didn't. She
You're asking
didn't.
me to defend,
No, no, I'm not asking you to
defend.
defend. I'm just trying to. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not on you to defend anyone. What I'm basically trying to get, and because I know I'm never gonna get a chance to speak to somebody like Danny. She wouldn't come on here to speak to me. What I'm trying to understand is like for her to single out white people and her also be affiliated to Sweet Baby. If you don't know, you don't know. That's fair enough. But it makes
yeah,
because she was employed there.
yeah,
If I'm Kim Belair, and obviously I know she's in contact or she was in contact with Danny when she was working there, and you're employing somebody like that, and they're saying something openly in like a team meeting that was put
yeah,
online,
yeah.
it's a bit. If someone did that in one of my team meetings, I would fire them because I would perceive her to be a racist. I would be
How do
like,
you know that she? How do you know that she wasn't fired for that?
she's still heading up Black Panther.
I don't think she works there anymore.
for the
I'm not
Black
saying she
Panther
was fired.
studio. No, she doesn't
I
work
don't
for
know
Sweet
this.
Baby anymore. I know she's
Okay,
left,
okay, yeah,
but
yeah,
at
yeah.
the
Okay.
time there was still close ties, and she still works for Black Panther. And obviously, because she's heading up a team and she's excluded a whole group of
She's not
people,
heading up a team as well. That I know for sure she's not heading up a team.
that's what
I
she
know
says
for a
in the
fact.
video. So unless she was lying, she says in the video that this is her team and she's picked these people specifically, and she excluded white people to protect black people from microaggressions.
That was for the game that she worked on before. I know that much. That's the only thing I know. That statement was on the game she had worked, an indie game that she had worked on before.
Not
I
Black
have to be
Panther.
careful. Yeah, I have to be careful here because it sounds like I'm here like, oh, this defends blah
No, no,
blah.
no,
I'm
no.
just here
it's
for
none of
objective
that.
truth.
I'm just asking you
One thing
questions.
I'm
Don't feel
certain
like you're.
of, she's not heading up no team, and I know that that statement was more to do with the project she was working on before, which was about. I think it was focused on queer black people. I think,
Right,
but you
okay.
have to, like I said, it would be really good if we did our research first because I hate talking on shit that I don't have the details on.
Yeah, I mean, I've got
Um,
it in a video. But
okay.
if it was even if it wasn't Black Panther, I think the game itself is irrelevant. I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah, of
yeah.
course, of
So
course.
the game itself is irrelevant. I was just trying to get an understanding of, is that something that she that is sort of like perpetuated in the studio, but or the in the firm. But if you don't know, you don't
No,
know. It's all good.
yeah,
Like
no,
I'm just asking.
but yeah, I can't speak on that person, but I know I'm very sure that for the four people who from Sweet Baby that I had to work alongside, that is like the antithesis of the way they talk and think.
Hmm.
It's like the total opposite. But I think another thing as well is you have to think about is what do Sweet Baby as a consultancy company do is often people will look like they worked with them when actually they were contracted by Sweet Baby to do a specific thing. And so their personal reputation gets attached to Sweet Baby. So perfect example is oh yeah, someone saying that it was the comment was from years ago on some indie game. But
Mm.
yeah, like you said, doesn't matter what game it was.
Yeah.
Anyway. Um perfect example is let's say the company was brought in to help with Spider-Man 2 and they helped to fill up the script. Um there's a lot of say Puerto Rican and even some Dominican representation in the game. What Sweet Baby would do from my perspective is they'd be like, I am not from this place. My parents are not from this place. We're gonna go contract a person to come work through us to work on this project because they grew up in this area of the Bronx in a mainly Puerto Rican neighborhood, and they have Puerto Rican like parents, and they know a lot of stuff. So we're gonna get that person. So then that person will be contracted in through the team to like help the build up the scripts and stuff. But then they'll be attributed as like they're the Sweet Baby culture, and it's like actually they're just an individual writer who have their own beliefs. They were just asked to come in on that project.
Hmm.
Most people who worked for that company, Sweet Baby, are like that.
Okay.
Most of them, yeah.
So, moving away from like Sweet Baby, because I don't want to make the whole
Yeah, yeah,
video
yeah.
about them. I wanted to get your, what is your perception? Because I know that gamers feel quite strongly about this, with gender bending and race swapping characters.
Mhm,
And I was just having a conversation with somebody in my family about it, and she kind
mhm.
of sits on the opposite end of me. I'm not a big fan of gender bending characters, and it's not because I don't like seeing women in prominent roles, and it's not
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
don't like their representation. I don't like established characters being switched in and switched out. So one of the ones that people were really annoyed about recently was Sector and Cyrax in Mortal Kombat. And
Yeah.
when the discourse goes online, a lot of the time, the responses that I see from the opposing side of the conversation is, "You guys are." They've started using some word called chuds. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but
Yeah, I've seen that. I've never used the word before, but I see it
I've
all the
seen
time
it.
online.
Yeah, I've seen it thrown. It's been thrown at me a couple of times, but they'll say that, oh, these are guys that just don't want to see girls in roles. They only want to see them when they've got their clothes off. Where do you
Hmm.
sit on all of that? Because I feel like game journalists and some game developers antagonize gamers when really I don't think there's anything wrong with me not wanting, like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima is a perfect example of this. When I saw the Ghost of Yotai, it wasn't because I didn't want to see a female character in a samurai game. It's because
Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima was such a good game, and I had some attachment to that character that they told the
Hmm.
story with. I was looking forward to seeing him. But when you go online and you
Yeah.
get people in the industry and some game journalists just attacking gamers saying you just hate women, where do you sit on that? Do you think that their purpose? Do you think the gamers have a point? Do you think that they're antagonizing gamers, or are you sort of like neutral on the whole situation?
No, I'm not. I'm not neutral, but I think it's a complex thing to answer, and I'll explain why it's a complex thing to answer. It's because it's so situational.
Mm,
It's super, super situational. Because, um, for one, I I think that it's more how the conversation comes about. The gender bending and race swapping in general, if done like kind of whack, is boring. Like, it's boring. Sometimes it kind of works. Like, I actually like Master Raven, for example, in Tekken. I just thought that was a cool idea.
mm.
A lot of people don't like Master Raven. I know
It
a lot of
seemed
people just
pointless
like
to me. It was
dead.
like just make another female ninja. Why have you got to switch out
Sure.
Raven?
I thought it was kind of cool. But even then, that's not like a perfect example. But then I think what's really interesting is when it's like the value of the character is changed.
Mm,
The change is done on a character who there's like they feign the value of. So Deadshot's a really good example. Like Deadshot in Suicide Squad is not the same Deadshot as the one in the previous Arkham games. Um and so it doesn't say like we race swap the characters, like saying this is actually a different individual. It's a different person who has the same moniker. But um were there really these big like lifelong Deadshot fans for who someone who was like a C-list villain in all of the Arkham games? I don't know. Maybe there was. I don't know. But for me, working on it, I didn't feel like because it was the director who made the decision, like the creative director of the Batman games had made that decision. He was just like he liked the Will Smith character,
yeah.
and he was just like, I think this I can make this work. I think it just there's something about the way he's carrying himself. It just makes sense. Like I don't, and you have to think that when that decision was made, this was 2017
So
or
the climate
something.
was a little different.
Right. Exactly. The climate was very, very different where someone could say something like that, where it's just like, oh, let's just change his look, but we can just say it's another one with a different mono. Bro, he thought about it for 10 seconds, said it, and then moved on. Like, I don't think you can do that now because of the way that the climate is now. But
So
then
how
I'm
comes they
also
keep
think
doing it then?
I don't. One thing I don't know. I don't know why they keep doing it, but I know that I agree that there's sometimes it's annoying when it comes across as like inauthentic or it doesn't really make sense. They keep talking about a black James Bond. They've been talking about that for the last 10 years, and I'm like, shut up, man.
Yeah,
Like I'd rather we just have our own feel. Like for every time they say like, "Oh, black James Bond," I'm just like, just focus on a Blade movie.
yeah.
Like, but I'd rather we have something of our own, personally. But I'm also not of the idea that I'm also not of the idea that um there's not room where it can kind of work. Like
I think it
I
can
don't
work on characters that, are, like you say, are like C tier villains or heroes. I
yeah,
think it works a little bit more in the MCU and the DCU because of the multiple universes. So I think some people
sure.
give it a pass. But when it's like more established things, or when it's things that we've grown up with, and either they're changing the race of the character, or they're gender bending them, or they're like changing the personality completely. I don't understand, as people that are trying to sell a game, how you can see the reception of a particular game you bring out and then decide we're going to flip the script on something people love, when the general conversation, at least towards gender bending and race swapping, is usually negative. I don't know why they even risk it, or why they, like with the Ghost of Tsushima thing. It's not a gender bend, but it's a swap out,
Yeah,
right?
that's just a new character.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
just a
new
new. That's
character, but it's a bit like, why did you do that though? Especially with the general climate, people love Jin. What was the like mindset going into that?
yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's different. That's more like GTA, in my opinion. In the sense that you play GTA 3,
Mm,
that's with one guy. You play like Liberty City Stories, that's a different person. You play the Vice City game, that's a different person. You play Nico in GTA 4. Like for me, it feels like they're going from that point of view because there's something like 100 years difference in all of the Ghosts in Ghost of Tsushima 1 and 2. It was just like, oh, that's you're clearly just, and it's a different island, it's a different area. That just feels like from my point of view, that feels like a general transition into like you just want to try a different story in a different
Can I
place.
ask you though,
Like,
if you were
mhm,
sitting in the meeting room, right, and you've
mhm,
seen the success of Ghost of Tsushima, and
mhm.
they turned around to you and said, right, we'll pivot and we're gonna go this way. We're gonna go Ghost of Yotai, and then they lay out the blueprint, and you see a new character, and it's a female samurai. Given the current climate, I would turn around to them and be like, I don't think this is a good idea. I think that maybe we should just make a different game with a different with a female samurai and not have the ghost name attached to it. What I'm confused about with the industry is that the answers seem so clear and they always seem to go in the opposite direction, and then they're surprised when people jump online. They're like, what are you doing?
I would agree with you. The only thing that makes me not agree with you that like the only thing that makes me not agree with that statement is Femshep from Mass Effect.
Mm-hmm.
Because the same thing happened in 2012. That was like, the first Gamergate, blah, blah, blah. Like, and then there was rumors that you could have like a Femshep, and that was going to be the one that was going to be pushed a bit more. She's considered the canon one for whatever reason. Like, and the game ended up being more successful than the one before.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seemed on paper, it seemed like actually if that's your original vision, you have to also assume that you're talking about a game as a service to people. But a lot of the creators who make these games don't see it as it's a service to people. They're like, I have a vision in my head and I want to make the Mike Hollow movie. This is my plan. These are my characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect where sometimes people don't really recognize that um you have to allow creative people to be creative how they envision their vision,
Mm.
just in the same way that there are some things like we say like, oh, you're race swapping this or you're gender bending that. It's just like, yeah, Superman was around for a long time before Supergirl came out.
Can I push
Like,
back on that a little bit?
yeah, of
Because
course, absolutely you can.
I
Of course
think
you can.
that when you're making an original piece of work, I think people are more likely to be okay with you taking risks and throwing out characters that maybe are not going to be as well received. Like I want to talk about Concord a little bit later on, but
Yep.
something like that, even though that one's a bit of an extreme example, I think people are less annoyed when it's new things rather than established things.
Yeah,
The
yeah, they definitely
example,
are.
the example I wanted to give you, I know this example might not resonate with anyone. It might not resonate with you. I don't know, but in last year or I think early this year, The Rock came back to the WWE, right?
Mhm.
And the original angle was to have him and Roman Reigns in the main event, but the audience really got angry about it, and they said we want Cody, right?
Yeah,
And
they got heat, boy.
they got
I
hit,
remember they
and the
didn't give Cody his
WWE
time.
they didn't give Cody his time, and the WWE pivoted, right? Because they were like, this is what the
Mhm.
audience wants. We need to sell
Yeah.
tickets. And because it's an established storyline, you can understand why Triple H is like, we need to listen to them because we need to sell tickets. What I don't
Yep.
understand with these game developers is that they'll create something and it'll be a smash hit. And
Yep.
I acknowledge that things like Mass Effect, things like those things happen, but how often it goes the other way would make me think that, okay, I had this vision for my game, but
Mhm.
the explosion of popularity with the original product I put out has made me rethink maybe we should pivot this way. And
Mhm.
then they kind of, at least from what I can see of a lot of things that I've seen recently, they don't, and they stick to their guns and they go with it. And then they almost act surprised when the reaction is a little bit more negative. Now I didn't say anything about Ghost of Yotai like that was egregious. I said that
Yeah.
maybe the woman that is playing the character should stop antagonizing people online because that's what it looked like to me. And I think when obviously people are free to post their political leanings if they want, but that's going to affect the sell of your game on some level.
Mhm.
But it was just confusing. It's always confusing to me when you've got an established IP and people are like, oh, we want this, and the developers are like, no, we're gonna go this way. Which I can sympathize if it's a brand new game and nobody knows what it's about. I
Mhm.
think those two things are a little bit different. I just don't understand why they're not more willing to listen.
Yeah, there is that. I will say that on some level, um, yeah, there is room to have a conversation and listen, and I just don't know if that's the best way. I just don't know if that's the wisest thing to be at the mercy of in all situations. You
Yeah,
know,
no, I
because
agree. I agree.
I've seen examples where I have seen like serious pushback. You know, you have to consider when I'm kind of showing my age now here, but when Chris Claremont came onto X-Men
Hmm.
and he said, I don't really want to use Cyclops or Beast or Iceman or Jean Grey. Like I don't these characters aren't really doing it for me. Like I'm gonna create a bunch of new X-Men and I'm gonna focus on that. And people were just like, "Who's this black woman from Kenya, man? What's Storm's not even a good name?"
Mm.
Or like he created Colossus, or he created Jubilee. He put Wolverine on the team. Like there was insane pushback. I even got to see the pushback from Star Trek Voyager. It was the first instance where someone on the team was a Vulcan who didn't look like Spock. And there was actually a ban on the Star Trek fandom forum because they didn't have um you know Twitter back then. There was a
Hmm.
ban on people constantly making threads about how it is politically correctness gone mad
Hmm.
that they've made a black Vulcan when you know he should look like Spock. Like, why would there be one? And people were saying like, why don't they just listen? Like, this is what we want. And in the end, Voyager ended up being one of the most successful Star Trek series. It had like you know insane number of seasons. Um, Same thing with Brian Michael Bendis when he got given Ultimate Spider-Man, and he had done like a great run on X-Men, and then he was like, I actually want to do something different. Um, I'm gonna do a different Spider-Man. I'm gonna kill Peter Parker in Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm gonna create a new Spider-Man. I'm gonna call him Miles Morales, and he's not gonna be the kind of Spider-Man you know. And there was super backlash for that too. Like it was
I'm not
nonsense.
ashamed to admit I was not happy when they killed Peter.
Sure, sure. There's the I don't think that people shouldn't be valid in saying I don't like this. If you don't like that, it's it's okay to say you don't like that. I don't think people be like, you're wrong to dislike that.
Mm.
I'm saying sometimes it might look a bit mad if your reasonings are weird. If your reasonings don't make sense, I'll be like, this is dumb. Like, you know. Um, but you also have to say like it's objectively true that things that have been pushed back on in hindsight, we look back on them and we're like, oh, right, actually, maybe they were right to do that because clearly there's a new success and a new vision that they went with,
Mm.
and there's room for that to exist, you know,
Don't you think
like
it? Don't you think that the times were very different back then? I feel like people were more willing to because identity politics weren't a part of everything that we talk about, or like the way the right and the left have been completely split now. I know there's always been a split between the right and left, but it seems now with like the advent of the internet and people being on Twitter, it seems a lot more like everyone's at each other's necks. So, as somebody that is working in a company, don't they look at the social and the political climate and think to themselves, "We've got something successful here. Do we really want to like rock the boat?"
people who make it to high level don't think in terms of fear.
Hmm.
Like, in my opinion, they don't think that way. They're not like, oh, like, yeah, this is unless you're just like your whole business is service without creative vision. Like when Coca-Cola changed the ingredients and then people got upset and then they were like, well, we have to go back. Like that's not you're not being creative here. You're just messing up the product.
Hmm.
Like I don't think you can have the argument that games are too samey because they were in the 2000s. Games were very samey for a while. Like there's that image of like something like 46 white men with shaved heads as main characters for video games in 2000s, and it's like those games they just look samey, like objectively. Maybe there's room for something else. Not to say that in a game shouldn't have white people. Like that doesn't make any fucking sense either. But there are some times where you're changing something because you have a creative vision, or two, the correction to something looks like forced change.
Mm.
Let's look at the example of um let's look at the example of the Batman Arkham games, for example. I've worked on two of them. I personally believe that they're great games. You know, some people might be like, oh, the games are dead, whatever. My personal view is they're great games.
Is this Arkham
But
Asylum, Arkham City?
I
Uh,
worked on Arkham Origins and I worked on Arkham Knight.
okay.
But you could have the example that, yeah, people are like, yeah, it doesn't, like, the games aren't that great. But let's look at it from the point of view of like trying to correct some things. Because you can also say that there's older games where the sex objective sexism in the game just is just whack.
Mm.
Just like, all of the girl characters, like in all of the girl NPCs, they're just damsels in distress. So it's like, oh, I actually like it when some of them can fight too, or whatever it is, But there are some things that I don't say have to be corrected, but will be looked at in a different light. So Batman, Batman games are based in Gotham, and Gotham is based on a culmination of New York, New Jersey and Chicago. That's like the trifecta of where they source their ideas to create like the architecture and then a bit of Boston as well. When you're making a game like that and you're choosing to come from those places, and then you have, three or so games where there's no black people that have any, like, all right, I won't say no black people, but there's no black villains at all, like that are above thug, but low level thug, and there's like what, like 60 villains. I don't feel like that would happen if you went to New York or you went to Chicago, or you see what I'm saying? Like it's like, okay, but the correction now is like, oh, it just makes sense to just introduce a few, but then the response is like, why are you guys race swapping or blah blah, like, or why are you forcing it in? And I'm like, I can see that point of view, but I'm also just like, it was kind of broken already.
Mm.
Friends is a
What?
good example. The television show Friends.
Yeah.
Friends is based in New York City, and
Yeah.
then for 10 seasons, there is no repeat character who is black, and it's set in New York City, the place that's full of Latino people. It's like black people, Puerto Rican people. Like it's a big melting pot of a bunch of different people, but like that natural bias to like, oh, we're just casting this way, blah blah blah. You can look at it and be like, well, if we redid it or went back to that now, we probably would introduce more characters that just represent the area. That can also look forced.
Isn't there's quite a few like black shows from back then though, like that they didn't have recurring white characters. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Of
think
course.
like I don't know if it was,
Live in Color as well was
yeah.
one.
There was a few of them, and I don't know if I would redo Friends. Like I get that like there's no recurring black characters in there, but there's uh
Still season 9.
yeah, there's no recurring loads of different types of people and loads of different shows. So to if it was a case where we're just gonna add in loads of different people because New York's a melting pot, then fine. But if it was like just black people, I would say well there's not recurring characters in some other shows as well that are
Hmm.
centered around black people. But I wanted to ask you, you were talking about like the same look that they were giving like white characters back in the day, and it was the
Hmm.
same sort of like aesthetic. How do you feel about the Killmonger haircut? Because a lot of these games that I see with the Killmonger haircut, some of them I've seen with names attached to them of people that I would think know that not all black people have that haircut. And it's gotten to the point now. I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me was Eddie Gordo, and I was just like, why is everybody
Yeah.
giving black characters these haircuts if we're supposed
Yeah,
to be
that's
doing
been a
this?
conversation. Have you
What's the
ever
logic
seen the
behind that?
image? Have you ever seen the image of like all the examples? And there's like
Yeah,
maybe 12 examples.
yeah,
I made that image. If you go back and look who first tweeted that image,
yeah.
I was the one who opened up Photoshop and put all of those images there.
Mm,
So I just thought, but I think there's a few things happening as well. Um, and I know why it kind of happens. And I know why when you say stuff like, "Oh, aren't they paying attention to the climate?" It's not factoring in how long it takes to make a game.
Hmm.
I know that when all of those characters were being made, Black Panther just got like highest grossing movie of the year. And by the time the game came out, then all of those games were being released at the same time. Is That's the biggest problem with the games industry, I'd say. It's not, you cannot pivot as fast as you can with movies. A really good example is um live service shooter games
Yeah,
not currently being received very well when they get released.
like Concord.
Like Concord and like Suicide Squad hasn't been received as well as it maybe would have had it been released at a different time. You have to think that when um Concord was first pitched and when Suicide Squad first started, Overwatch just won Game of the Year.
Hmm.
Destiny 2 was gonna like it was like Destiny 2 was a whisper. There was this rumors of this game called Anthem, and Overwatch was crushing it. But the time it took to make the game, by the time the game came out, the climate was not as accommodating for this. And
But it's,
that's also something that you have to factor in when you talk about like, why didn't they do this when they know the climate? It's like you don't know how long they were working on that.
but the culture in America and the UK at least changes quite a lot, quite rapidly. So
Yeah.
at least in more modern times, let's say from 2010, things have shifted like every 4 years, kind of. It feels like every time a new president comes in, things completely shift. But if we give it to like 4 or 5 years, aren't they taking into account? Okay, Overwatch has won now, but the Concord development cycle's 8 years. We need to like
You
take that
don't,
into
they,
account.
one, it's never meant to take 8 years. It's never meant to take 8 years.
Hmm.
But you also have to factor in people are just working from what they're excited about and what they're inspired by. Like,
Okay, just based on that, I don't want to take shots at individual game developers, but
sure.
just I need to. I'm trying to. I've always tried to wrap my head around Concord. I looked at those character designs. I sat with my sister. I don't know if you see her on the channel a couple of times. She has different opinions to me, and we both sat there and we both thought to ourselves, what were they thinking? Like,
I don't really know. I can't really speak on that. I don't know any of the developers, and I can't really speak on that. Like maybe what they made just didn't quite connect. I'm I don't like to talk too much on things I wasn't really in the
yeah,
room
yeah.
for.
No, I'm
Yeah,
not
like
to speak about them specifically, but looking at it as
yeah.
an artist and somebody that's worked in the industry, I'm not even an artist, and I looked at that and I thought,
Mhm.
like, what climate were you paying attention to? In no universe was this game going to do well with those character designs, and from what I understood about the scenario, because people were leaking stuff about the studio, is that nobody was allowed to criticize the studio. In your
Where
experience,
did you hear that from? I'd love to know where you heard that from. Do you
um,
even know where you heard that from?
yeah,
Like
it
that's
was.
not a crit. That's not. I'm not cutting you out. I just want to know where you heard that from
No,
because.
I'm not saying it's a verified source. I'm saying
Okay.
that it
Okay.
was it was leaked on Twitter and people were saying that in within the studio nobody was allowed to criticize. So what I was going to ask you is that because I'm not on the inside and you weren't there, have you ever worked in a studio where you have there's been like an air of toxic positivity? Because we see that online where people, even with Sparking Zero, right, it's just come out, saying something negative about it on Twitter, it can, people would just start rushing you down for it. Does
Yeah.
that happen in game studios as well? Because
Yeah. Of course, that happens in game studio. Toxic positivity happens. That of course that happens in game studios for sure.
does it happen to the
Um.
point where if you start saying, "Yo," like not in a rude way, but I don't like what you're doing over here. We need to change this. Does it ever get to the point where people are like, "Stop trying to change this. This is what's going forward." Like, can you not critique? Because that's what the leak was making out. It was making out like nobody could say
Yeah. I
anything
don't
bad.
know. That sounds mad to me. That proper sounds mad to me. I don't. What I would say is, um, I think sometimes people think toxic positivity looks like how that's being described in terms of like, you can't say anything. When from my point of view, more so, it's like, I'm not really feeling that, and other people being like, well, we're feeling it. We're gonna
Mm,
try it anyway. We're just gonna give it a shot, and it just keeps going in that direction. I
yeah.
don't really see this whole like everyone's a Gestapo suit, like you must listen to the blah blah blah. I rarely, I've never really seen that. The toxic positivity I often see is just like ah, like, but we like it. Like, we're gonna just try it. Like, and someone being like, oh, I don't know, I don't think it's working. And someone being like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, I see it more as different opinions, and the person who makes the call is leaning to that way anyway.
Mm.
Um,
I didn't
yeah,
make
that,
a video on it myself because I didn't know if what they were saying were true. I did a reaction to some guy talking about it, and I
yeah,
was saying in the video, this is crazy because apparently, according to the guy in the video, they invested 200 million into the project, and then Sony invested another 200 million into it,
yeah.
and then the game they lost everything because they had to refund what little that people purchased from it. And in the video, I was basically saying, how can you invest 400 million into a game and be a studio of talented artists and then go online because one of the developers went online and started antagonizing people?
Yeah, that was probably not
Yeah,
great.
but I don't
I mean,
think that.
there's no upside to that.
Yeah,
I
but is
agree.
that like a general set? Because in what I'm seeing online, and obviously I know that you sitting here would confirm that you don't think like some of the people that I've been seeing online. But it seems to me like whenever there's genuine criticisms, they try to make out, and I've been called this myself, that you are a right wing grifter. You just want to see all these games fail, and you have nothing of worth to offer the conversation, which
Yeah.
I don't think is fair to group all
Yeah,
gamers
I
like
think
that.
that's an extreme division. It's actually why I'm like there are a few people I will call out straight away. Like if you're like a super grifter, I'm gonna be like this guy,
Mm,
blah blah. But I rarely talk about the gamer's perspective or player's perspectives anymore.
okay.
One, there's no upside, but also um it's a divisiveness that doesn't really there's no upside to it.
Hmm.
There is no real upside to it because yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like Harada does it actually all the time. Actually, he's like, you guys don't know shit, blah blah blah
Yeah, I've
blah.
seen
But
it.
like, for some reason, he gets away with it. He does it every
But
day.
he seems more jokey because I've met Harada in person and he seems
Yeah,
a bit more like a joker. When I'm watching these guys on Twitter, when I'm reading their tweets,
yeah, they're
some of
very
them,
sensitive about
yeah,
it.
they get
Yeah,
very angry. I've seen like people saying, I wish I could just punch this person to death. And I'm just like, this seems a bit
yeah, yeah,
mad. Like,
yeah,
we're just talking about games. I don't like your game. I don't have a problem with you personally, but you're coming on here and you're calling all of us. They'll either say you're like a racist, you're a Nazi, you're a Trump
yeah.
supporter, you're
Sure,
this, that, and the other. I don't
sure.
even live in America to be a supporter of either candidate.
Yeah,
And
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I agree. Yeah, that divisiveness is it's it's tiring to see because bro, I feel like I came from the mud, man. Like to make it all the way over here, I have a bit, though I don't have this like perspective of well, we are the.
you sound local. I'm not gonna say where I'm based, but you sound like you're from round the way.
I'm not far from where you are, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not far from because I'm from South London originally anyway,
Okay.
but I think
I'm
I'm
north.
pretty okay, but my girlfriend was from Enfield. So I
Okay.
spent time in both.
Okay.
But the thing that I definitely see is I do have a perspective from the gamer's point of view as well as the developer's point of view. But also, I don't value my point of view higher than other people's point of view to the point where I'm like, yeah, all you guys are dumb, blah, blah, blah. Unless you say some outwardly racist stuff, then I'll just be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
What you
Yeah.
say doesn't matter. But yeah, there's two things. One, these people aren't media trained. They're not media trained. These
Hmm.
people just got really good at a skill set. They knew how to code. They knew how to make assets for games. They knew how to make trees for games or characters for games. And now they have a Twitter. They're not media trained.
Hmm.
So that's probably half the battle is they're just responding. They're responding and antagonize someone who doesn't have as big a voice, and they probably shouldn't be talking to them in the first place.
Mm.
But I think maybe sometimes people don't realize that all works get critiqued.
Yeah.
Like, and you just gotta be okay with that. Like,
Yeah. I think.
you kind of just have to be okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, being on YouTube now, some videos will get more comments than others, and sometimes people will say things to me, that are like not the most flattering, but I never take it personally. Like I'll engage with them, and these guys know in the chat if they say something rude to me, I'll be rude back. But
Yeah.
I don't go out my way to antagonize anyone. And I don't understand. There's people that I'm
You've
not.
had more experience. You've had tons
I'm
more
not media trained
experience.
though. Like
You are. I promise you that you are. I promise you that you're media trained. It's just that your training came through experience.
so do
Like,
these guys when they because these developers like these studios and these publishers know that they're going to be online. Do they not sit them down and say, listen, it's a very volatile situation on Twitter. Can you like
not,
watch what you not watch what you say,
they
but don't
do, but they
antagonize
don't.
people.
They do, but usually in the response to something, and they don't ever really invest in media training these people. Like, absolutely don't. I think that will change. I
Yeah.
do think that will change, but they don't really. Yeah, they're quite frankly, these are working people.
Hmm.
People are like, oh yeah, you worked on this and that, and this game. It's like I'm still trying to make the bills work and this and that. Like I'm not, I haven't made it. Do you know what I mean? Like these people are regular people. It's a difference when you're like, oh, you're going to be in the next Black Panther free, so we're going to get you a media trainer, we're going to get you a dietitian, etc. They're not thinking like that
Yeah.
on a level of developers. They're also not thinking that the backlash is really going to be long-winded or really affect sales because for a long time it didn't. Long stuff that got people upset online didn't really wasn't really real.
Mm.
It wasn't really just like, oh, a few people just don't like the new Pokemon. Whoa, like they're saying on the forums they're not gonna buy it. It's like, yeah, good for
Mm.
you.
Yeah, but now we can
That's
talk
only
to you guys.
recently. Hmm?
Now we can actually connect like with actors and people in the industry, and then you get a
Yes.
sense of their personality, and you're like, well, I'm not going to support that now.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then it's worse depending on where you work. When I
Yeah.
was working at Naughty Dog, anything that I wrote that was a little bit like spicy would end up as an article.
Mm.
Like anything. Like Naughty Dog dev says blah 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 blah. And it'd be like something benign, like I'm like, oh, I'm just not really feeling this game. I'm gonna wait till a better game comes out.
Mm.
It's like, Naughty Dog dev says he hates XYZ. Like because there's like an element of like, oh, that's what kind of what I was talking about with the whole Sweet Baby thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't represent Naughty Dog, that whole company. I just have my unique opinion.
Yeah.
But because this thing is in the spotlight, it means that anyone who's worked for them, now their perspective becomes the whole perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't help that at the time Neil Druckmann did say some antagonistic things to people, and I think Troy Baker did as well. And then it all came out that there was some relationship between Anita Sarkeesian, and given the whole Gamergate thing,
Hmm.
I when that came out, I was sitting there with my friends, and I was like, I don't even know why this guy mentioned that he had affiliation to this woman. She's like radioactive right now, and when those sort of things happen, like as somebody that's trying to sell a game. I would be a bit like maybe we should keep it a bit quiet that like this woman is here because
They
nobody.
don't think that way. People who are really high in their people who are really high up in their like career who've got there through creativity. They don't think that way. They don't think that. And I'm not saying it's a positive or negative thing. I'm saying if you got somewhere really big off your own like creativity, when
Mm,
someone says you shouldn't do that, blah blah blah, you're not thinking, yeah, I'm gonna take that advice. That's objective truth. You're thinking, you didn't build me. I
mm.
made it this just in the same way if your fan base starts saying like, yeah, you shouldn't really talk about XYZ or this, you'll be like, this is what I did the whole time and I'm here. Like I'm
Mm.
not I just don't think that they think from a fear point of view a lot of the time. They don't think like
Okay, fair enough. They don't think from a fair point of view, but it definitely feels like they walk into oncoming traffic sometimes. Like the whole Anita Sarkeesian thing, they've a lot of these people online saying grifter this and grifter that.
Mhm.
But and I don't like using that word, but if I had to attribute that word to anybody, it would be Anita Sarkeesian. Given her background and what she said about gamers, how she had no real care for the industry, and then all of a sudden she was all up in it, and then to see her affiliated with a franchise that people loved, I could understand. And I was also one of the people that was like, I don't like this. Like this woman's been
Mhm.
saying things about male gamers for a long time. Now she's snaked her way into the industry, and then
Mm.
Neil Druckmann was a bit like, coming at the gamers, and I was like, how can you not understand that they're going to be pissed? And then given the fact that you've got a beloved character like Joel, and you basically butcher him on screen to this new character, obviously people are going to be annoyed at that.
Yeah. People. I mean, he knew that was gonna piss everyone off. Like he knew.
What was so
But
you were there at the time? What was the?
no, I wasn't. I wasn't there at the time.
Oh, you wasn't
I
there for
came for
Last
the
of Us 2.
remaster of the game.
Oh, okay.
But I got the whole backstory of what led to that decision. Like,
Are
because
we
I'm
allowed to
asking
know?
questions like you. It's all available online. There's a documentary where he talks about it now. So yeah,
Okay.
it was like he just decided. He just decided. It
That I'm...
didn't come from a conversation. He just like, and then he told everyone. Everyone was like, "What are you talking about?"
But
Like
you
he
don't
just
just
decided.
decide those things though. There's like a thought process that goes behind it.
No, when I say he just decided, I mean it didn't come from an external thing.
Mm.
From everyone I've spoken to in the studio, they were just like he just came to that conclusion that that's the story he wanted to tell, and he felt that death was like a very important thing that you can't really get. It was like an important thing that you can't get into games and have an emotional response.
Hmm.
And he just wanted to do that. Like,
It's not
which
so
is
much Joel's death that I think pissed people off. I think it's the way he was killed, and it wasn't
sure,
because he was
sure.
battered. He was beaten with a golf club or a baseball, whatever it was. It was the fact that he
Boy,
presented. They presented Joel to be this really intelligent guy in the Last of Us 1, that he had basically figured out how to navigate himself in the apocalypse. And then when it got
yeah.
to the Last of Us Part 2, him and his brother just basically outed who they were. And I was sitting there
Well, his
like,
brother Al did. His brother did. Joel didn't. But you're right. Yeah.
no, no.
But I think
Joel said, yeah, I'm Joel. And then everyone went quiet, and it was like, you guys acting like you know me, because people didn't really know his brother, right? He wasn't as well known because he didn't have the whole issue of the Fireflies. But Joel dropped his name, and I was sitting there before it happened. I was like, who wrote this? Like, this feels like it was
yeah.
intentionally written to piss people off. That's what it felt like to me.
But what you're describing, I think, is just fair critique of writing that you don't like.
Mm.
That doesn't usually come from that. Your nuanced examples are not the norm. Like, usually it's like, yeah, this is bad. You've never been able to write anything good in your life. And it's
Yeah,
like, this conversation can't really go anywhere from here now.
yeah. It's because
Like,
when I was sitting there
nuanced
thinking
discussion's
about it,
limited.
I was thinking to myself, like, if I like, you can write bad things, and I'm not gonna shit on somebody for you told a bad story,
You had an
whatever.
attempt, right?
You made an attempt, but when
Yeah.
I
I
was
mean, I
watching,
have to say too, I liked it. I'll be honest. I liked it.
we could agree to disagree on that
Sure, but
one.
that's what I mean. That's life, isn't it? I thought
But
it was
I'll
sick
tell
in
you
the
what
sense
my
that I responded.
I'll tell you what my thought process though. My thought process is here is that I don't. When I'm doing something, every time I do something, I think about it first. Well, for the most part, I'll think about it first when it's something really important. I imagine telling a story as big as that. I'd sit there
Hmm.
and ponder it. The reason that I sat there and I was like, this feels like it was intentionally done to piss off male gamers, is because in the lead up to it, they did a lot of interviews and there was a lot of talk about guys online saying being toxic or whatever. And then that trailer dropped, and we all got the sense that Joel's gonna get taken out. And when the trailer dropped, I said to everyone, if Joel dies, it's the apocalypse, whatever. But the way he told it, I don't believe that he sat there and he was like, yeah, I'm just going to kill him. I think he saw all the discourse online and he was like, I was going to kill him
Maybe I
anyway.
can't.
Now I'm going to piss everyone off with it.
Maybe you're right. Like I don't know. But you can also say the game went on to sell 11 million copies. So it
It did, but off the
also
back of the name of the first one. I don't think a new one will do that.
sure, sure. Maybe. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Like, it's not a great example because the game was a hit. It was a game
No,
was a
it
hit.
was a
So
hit, but I acknowledge that I believed it was going to sell well anyway. But
okay,
I believed it was going to sell well because the first one was such a smash hit and everybody was looking
yeah.
forward to it. I don't think it would have the same impact now. I still think it would do well, but I don't think it would reach the levels that the first two did.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. But I also know that he was looking at that story for years before he even got into video games. Like
Mm.
he was like thinking about pitching it as a comic book or like it was a long time of this storyline.
Hmm.
So I also recognize when someone has something in their head for many, many years, No one's gonna tell them nothing
Yeah.
when it's time to make it. So
Okay. All right. Just to pivot the conversation slightly away from Last of
yeah.
Us. Again, if you don't want to answer this, then just tell me. I won't take no offense. We'll move on to something else. Um, a little while ago, I saw you put up a tweet. And it was about characters that you create, and it was about black female characters.
hmm Yeah, this is the conversation where I made an active decision to not talk about this anymore.
Is this where you got the
Be-
attacks from?
It's not so. It wasn't so much attacks. Attacks I don't mind. Attacks are nothing. It's not a
Mm,
problem. It was more so that people were utilizing my statements to say things that I like legit didn't agree with, and that was when I was just like, there is actually no benefit to talking about this because the audience is only farming this to
mm.
like spread hate. Like I'd be like, there'll be like YouTube videos with like 100,000 views talking about this is why this is happening in games, or this is why your game has ugly black women in it when it shouldn't have. And it's like, bro, stop putting my face next to that statement. That's not what I flipping said. And so I just felt like people after that, because I said I didn't want to talk about it no more, people were like,
Yeah.
he got silenced by the industry. And I was
Mm,
like, that's actually not what happened. What happened is I realized this is not a place where I can have nuanced discussion about black people without you guys turning it into black people ruin everything. Like objectively felt that way. I was just like, so.
Do
But
you
yeah,
feel
carry
comfortable?
on.
Do you feel comfortable enough explaining the tweet a bit more now? Again, if you don't want to, I'll take
I
no
do to
offense.
you and to your audience. It took a long time to find someone who I was like willing to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And the thing that I think happens is, first off, we need to talk about a perception of what DEI is. Because I've heard you say I don't like no DEI in anything. And I was also like, that's fair, you can have that statement. But do you know what that even means? I'm not questioning, I'm just like, I didn't know whether you even knew what that meant.
Yeah.
Because I think that word means something super different to me than it does for most people online. And
I
I think
can.
we need to have that conversation before we can like graduate into this tweet.
Yeah. So the way I look at DEI is the same way, and I know this might be a controversial way to put it, but
You
it's the
can put it
same
however
way
you
that I
want
look
to.
at Black Lives Matter. I look
Mhm.
at the sentiment Black Lives Matter as a good thing, right? Of course, our lives matter, but the
Mhm.
organization is a separate thing, and
Yeah, same.
I don't view.
I don't support the organization in any way.
Yeah, I feel personally, speaking openly, I find Black Lives Matter to be a scam organization, and I think that the name is well used to basically play on the emotions of black people. Because if you say to somebody, "I don't support Black Lives Matter," they're gonna look at you sideways, like, "What do you mean?" So I think that they were very smart in naming it that. With DEI, it's the same thing for me. Having characters
Interesting.
from different walks of life in games is not a problem. Same way that I've never had a problem with watching women in movies and main roles like Ripley or in Kill Bill
Mhm.
or whatever it might be. My issue with what's going on now is that this diversity and equity and inclusion stuff, it all feels like they are forcing it into areas of games that they shouldn't, or like like we were talking about gender bending earlier. The Sector and Cyrax example for me is really a perfect example. Two iconic
Mhm.
characters that nobody asked to be changed. There was no appetite for that on the climate whatsoever. They just thought, we're just going to change this, and not only are we going to change it, we're not going to benefit the story with it. The story is actually going to be worse because of it. And it's those sort of things where I'm like, no one would have had a problem if you had female cybernetic ninjas in Mortal Kombat, right? You've got Frost in there. You could have added more. Why did you do this? And then if you question it, it's like, oh, you don't like women. And I'm like, it's not that I don't like women. It's like, if you release a new Tekken game and Kazuya is no longer male, he's female. It's not that I hate women. It's like, why
Yeah.
is this here? So I feel like there's always a place to have loads of people from different cultures, and I think that's a good thing. It would be weird
Yeah.
for me as somebody that is from different ethnicities to sit here and be like, I don't like seeing people of different walks of life
Yeah,
in
of
games,
course.
but I don't want to be pandered to, and I don't want to feel like they're almost. Some of it almost feels insulting because I can go back and look at black characters in games like Telltale's The Walking Dead, and look at the main character and I look at Clementine and the story they told through Lee, I never felt like, that it's a black character and they got to tell a black story. I was like, this is just a good character and people love this character and people love Clementine and we go from there. But now it feels like, especially with Dragon Age, and I'm not a fan of Dragon Age. Just let everyone know I've played it here and there, but all the things I've been seeing and they've been clips. So what I'm saying is not going to be like 100% accurate. But from what I've seen, it really feels like they're telling me that, like non-binary people exist. And it doesn't feel like I'm jumping into a fantasy world. It feels like I'm being told off by the developers. Like, you misgendered me and this is how you're supposed to speak. And I'm just sitting there like, it seems out of place. Like, I feel like you're trying to force something. And then I saw today that they dropped this journal piece where they're talking about trans people. And if I question that, it's like, oh, you don't like trans people. And I'm like, it's not that I don't like trans people. It's just like, is this the time and place? We're supposed to be playing a fantasy game. Like, the forcing of the diversity and the inclusion to me is what I don't like. Like, if they release a new Superman film and it's Michael B. Jordan, it's not that I don't like black men being superhuman characters, because I like Will Smith and Hancock. It's just like, Superman is obviously he's not a human white man, but he's a white man. That's my Superman, Clark Kent.
Yeah.
That's why I sit on it.
I hear what you're saying. I'm going to expand a little bit on what you're saying and show you from my point of view. Because I am also of the belief that gender and race swapping integral characters can just come across as whack and pandering. It can. I'm not saying all times.
Yeah.
I'm saying that sometimes it can. Like, I don't really mind that War Machine exists and he was like, Iron Man came first and then they was like, we're going to do another version. He's a black guy, he's his friend, blah blah, he's a pilot. Yeah. Like, for me, I feel like that kind of worked. Like,
yeah, well,
just as an example.
Yeah.
But what I also find is sometimes when people decide to make their own thing, that gets lumped into forced diversity. So Dragon Age has always been that game. Always. It's been the gayest game ever. Like, that's how it always was. So my whole thing was just like, why are they worried about that game when you clearly never played the other games, because they were all like that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but where else are they supposed to make that game? If these people feel genuinely like, we want to make a game like this, and Dragon Age 2 was like this, you know what I mean? Like, shouldn't they have the freedom to make that game? I do understand that maybe sometimes you might, which is something separate from saying something established is doing some strange things that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be some conflict, just in the same way when Chris Claremont came in and was like, I want to change up the X-Men. A lot of people were very pissed off about that. But in the end, there was room for both to coexist after time came through. So I personally don't like when people conflate the two.
Can I push back on that just for you?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
Although I haven't played Dragon Age, I have played Baldur's Gate, and I know that
very
Dragon Age
way of doing it, but yep.
Yeah, I know that there's been games that have had gay characters in them before, TV shows, but I think my issue with it is more the way they go about it. So I've played Baldur's Gate enough to be like, this is a really good game. Like I said, full disclosure, I've not played Veilguard, but when I watched the clips of it, it felt like they were wagging their finger at me rather than just immersing me in a fantasy story.
Yeah.
And that's my problem. Like, it's trans people being in games, I don't care. Gay people being in games, I don't care. I don't care if the main character I'm using is gay, but if you're wagging your finger at me, if you're trying to push a message, I'm not stupid. I can tell when people are trying to make me be like, oh, I'm in the wrong here. I don't like that shit. I'm trying to play a fantasy game.
Then that just means the game's not for you, though. That I don't think that necessarily. If all games were like that, and there was no room for any, maybe I could be like, yeah, you just don't feel like you can just play Tetris, where there's just, there's just nothing. Like, but that could also just mean that game's not for you. There's so many other games that you could play in a fantastical universe.
That's true.
So I just feel like there's room for many. And I used the example of the movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
In the movie Boomerang, he is like Eddie's a marketing executive that works for a predominantly black company. And when he comes into the office, all the receptionists are black. All of the assistants are black, like the bosses, the CEOs, everyone is, and it's an advertising agency. I think it's an advertising agency that mostly work on black products. But it's like, but there's a really famous. I really encourage you to look it up of Jay Leno interviewing Eddie Murphy, and he talks about that, and he talks about how the LA Times did a hit piece on the movie saying that this was some fantasy land world where the whole company only had one race and it excluded black people, and it didn't make any sense. And he personally felt like it was like he just didn't like it. And my whole thing of like, Eddie Murphy responded by saying like, "Oh yeah, well, he just didn't like the fact that there wasn't a white man running the company, etc. Whatever." But what I've found really weird is like, why does that bother you if you was never gonna play that anyway?
Hmm.
That's my biggest criticism. It's like, okay, cool, you just don't like what that Dragon Age is doing. I think that's fair that you don't like what Dragon Age is doing, if that's just how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
But was that on your like um pre-order list?
No,
You know,
but
like
the reason that I bring up Dragon Age is that I hadn't played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and I was introduced to 3. And there's obviously a way to win new fans into games. And
yeah,
I'll be honest with you, the Dragon Age discourse is so messy that I can't tell who's telling the truth and who isn't. From what
yeah,
I understand, it hasn't met expectations. When I went online and looked at some things, people were angry at how the dialogue was put across. And
mhm,
although I wasn't going to play Dragon Age, I initially also wasn't going to play Baldur's Gate. When I sat down and played it, I was like, okay, I want to play this now, and I want to play it with my
yeah,
friends. I feel like the way they go about trying to get a message across feels like they're talking down to people. Because when I played Japanese games, a good example of this, and one game where I felt like they were trying to get a message across and they did it really well, was Lost Judgment.
mhm,
In Lost Judgment, I don't know if you've played it, but there's a big thing about bullying and about these boys bullying this girl, and the way that they talk about like the boys bullying the girl, and the way they talk, because bullying apparently is a big problem in Japan. I had no
mm,
idea. I resonated with me because as somebody that was overweight when they were young, and some of the girls made comments. I sat and I listened to the speech that Yagami gave in Lost Judgment, and I
mhm,
was like, that is a very, very, very powerful way to tell a story.
yeah,
When I look at American games and what's going on now, it doesn't feel like they're trying to tell a story. It feels like the developer themselves is talking to you, like, hey, I'm non-binary, and this is how you're going to address me. And although I haven't played through the entire game, the discourse that I've seen online is that a lot of people feel like they're having a finger wagged at them. Now, it's true that I'm not going to pick up the game, but I do think it's worth pointing out there seems to be a massive disconnect to the way these American developers are telling these political stories or these socially charged stories and the way the Japanese are, and why
yeah.
people are so angry from what I've seen, they seem to be angry at Dragon Age and the way it's gone about it. I
That's it.
don't think there's anything wrong with having trans characters in the game.
Yeah, yeah,
I just
yeah. I
think
hear what you're
how you
saying.
do it.
I sure. I think it makes sense to critique the method in which people do it if it's not for you. But then the counter argument is there is an audience that does want that.
Hmm.
Like,
How big is that
and
audience though?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just think just in the same way that Boomerang was never gonna sell the same as like a Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah.
Like, does that mean that shouldn't people don't have like the freedom to make that type of game? And even your discussion, your statement about like Eastern games don't really do that too much. Like Yakuza does it way worse. Yakuza, they literally introduce you to characters and they're like, oh, my name is this. I was actually born a man, and then like Kiryu would be like, oh, that's shocking to hear, but everyone has obstacles and everyone should respect you. Like they make a whole thing in Yakuza 0 where they're constantly putting it down your throat that like this is accepted and this is that, and it's their game. They're free to do it
I
that
didn't
way.
feel like that when I was playing it. I felt like they were showing me men in drag or like trans characters, but it didn't feel like Kiri was turning to the screen saying, you better accept this character. It felt more like Kiri was having a human conversation with the character.
Sure, sure. Perhaps you're right. I'm also not really here to defend these games.
Of course
I'm
not.
just saying like I don't see it from that point of view.
Yeah.
Like I just think there is room for different types of games, just as there's room for different types of movies.
Hmm.
And I don't really understand why it's upsetting people that much. 'Cause to be honest, I kind of see things. Your point of view was probably more refreshing. You was just like, you saw it, it seemed like it wasn't really something for you. So you're just gonna focus on the games you
Yeah.
like rather than someone devoting their entire YouTube and Twitter to 400 videos and 500 tweets about here is everything I don't like. It's like, bro, just like something, man. Just talk about something you like,
Are
which
you?
is that's different.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no,
so
I understand that. Like, I'm not
yeah.
above saying when I'm wrong either, because I was very critical of Silent Hill 2 remake, and I didn't like the things that I was hearing. And I came on here and I told everyone, look, I played it, my brother bought it. I'm not one of
Mhm.
those people that, and I don't have any problem with people doing this because I get the logic, but I don't generally buy games that I have a problem with. I would
Yeah.
just, but I understand if
Just
you've got a big audience, maybe you want to dissuade your audience from purchasing the game. You'll get it yourself to show people this is what it is, so don't buy it. I get that. I understand that logic, because
yeah.
I think their logic is that I'll spend my $70 or however much it is on the game, but I'll save all of these guys hundreds of pounds. I won't do that, because I live in London and rent's too high. But it's if I want to play the game, I'll ask someone for a code, and if I can't get it, then I won't play it.
Just
So
keep it moving. Yeah.
yeah,
That makes
but
sense.
I
Yeah.
I like it's not that these, because you get some people online saying, oh, why are you crying about it? But I don't look at it like that. I look at it as that, like, this like pop culture ecosystem, everything sort of bleeds into each other, and you start to
Hmm.
see trends in certain places. So with like Dragon Age, that seems like the culmination of a lot of things that have been happening in the gaming industry in the West in the lead up to this. And
Mm.
what I don't understand is that from what I've gotten from Dragon Age loyalists and enthusiasts, is that it was never like this before.
Okay.
They told me that there's gay characters in the game, just like there's been gay characters in Baldur's Gate, but
Yeah.
now it feels like someone is wagging their fingers at them. And even
Yeah.
my friend who is gay said, I don't really like this shit, man. Like, I'm
Mm.
plugging out of reality to plug into this, and it just feels like I'm on Twitter again.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm just
That's to be honest, that sounds more of a critique of bad writing than it does of like is do you know what I mean? Like that just feels like criticism of writing, which I think is valid, rather than saying like um
does it not feel a bit
how
like
do
a self-insert to you? Like, I'm taking my own grievances
I
with the
think most
world.
writing is
Do you
most
reckon?
writing is a self-insert. Yeah, most of the time. It's you're playing out a fantasy,
Mm,
you're creating a fantasy, or you're creating an environment based on like what you would like to see, or you're trying to invoke a reaction that you find as a good form of entertainment. Most writing is some form of self-insert. That's kind of where the whole conversation of diversity in games like came from.
yeah.
Even me stating um hey, how comes Gotham hasn't got like this kind of makeup of people? It's based on Chicago and New York and New Jersey, but
Hmm.
like the makeup isn't reflective of that. Kind of takes someone to come in and say that who's maybe from a diverse background to just get the other people to be like, oh, I didn't even realize that. Like, oh, I watch Friends all the time. I didn't even realize there's 9 seasons and no recurring characters that aren't white. Like, it's not that these people were like, yeah, we're gonna objectively remove all these. They just didn't really have that point of view. But that goes for, I think when people hear diversity, they don't think of diversity of thought.
Yeah.
Diversity of thought literally can be everyone looks the same, but they think differently. It's
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
more than just like one thing.
Hmm.
Even when people talk about consultants, they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't be making your game with consultants. Like, you should do it all on your own." It's like, bro, I haven't been to war. It makes sense for me to get a consultant who's worked with the army to help me figure out like what a sit rep means and what this means. And if I'm making a Call of Duty game, I need to speak to consultants.
Yeah.
Just as if I'm working on Spider-Man 2, I probably need a consultant of someone who's at least lived in New York, just so they know that like my lingo is right or wrong. Or and um I think all the nuances come out because our discussion has nuance and perspective, and we're kind of seeing each other's point of view. And you're saying certain things that I'm like, yeah, I kind of see your point of view on this thing. Maybe not so much we don't agree on that, but I can
Mm.
see where there's some movement here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest loss is that there's not like some nuance. Even someone saying, I don't believe in DEI, I'm like, I actually believe that you do. I just think you don't know what it means.
Mm.
Like when people talk about there should be no DEI in hiring, I don't even think they know what workplace hiring DEI practices actually are. From my point of view, like a good workplace practice DEI is like we need to try and find a way so that in our hiring practices we try and eliminate bias so we can just look at who can do the job.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point. So there'd be things like if someone is interviewed, for example, but they're from they're from Kansas City or they're from Alabama, and the way they talk has like Southern drawl and stuff like that. There needs to be a DEI practice is to be like, don't look at their accent, look at the body of work they've done, and you'd be like, well, he's going for a writing position, but when he writes, he clearly writes quite eloquently. He's even like published this self-published book that was really well, it was a New York best time seller. We should focus on that and negate the fact that he doesn't talk like us because DI hiring practice is meant to be it's meant to be to make sure that you correct for people from marginalized community so that they have a fair shot. So that means I shouldn't automatically reject someone because they're too old or too young. At least give them a shot at the interview. Just at least. I shouldn't reject someone because of their race or ethnicity or their gender. But one of the biggest ones that actually affects marginalized white people is there's a DEI practice that massively, massively is focused on white people getting hired fairly. And people don't talk about this enough. They talk about DEI hire, DEI hire, and they think about a black person is socioeconomic status. So that means if there's a DEI hire measure that affects marginalized white people, I can't say this person didn't go to an Ivy League school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna put them at the bottom of the list because this guy's from Harvard, this guy's from this, blah blah. Like, what if he was just from Detroit? But he's a sick artist. Like he's just proper sick. Like, so I wouldn't legally allowed to reject him without at least talking to him.
Do you think
Like,
it goes the other way though? Because I obviously I wouldn't say where, but there was a time where I had the ability to hire people and sit in on meetings, and obviously if I can't say the name of the place otherwise they'll come for me. But I've been in situations where
hang on, 1 second. This guy's saying it's objectively false that quotas exist. Quotas are flipping illegal, bro. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. There are
I
no quotas of like
this is what I wanted to
every
touch
company.
on. I having been someone that has been in these situations before, I have seen where it's not written down anywhere, or it's
Yeah.
written in a way where it's like what you said is true. They'll be like, we have to. There's a DEI for white people, but from what I saw, is that it was very smart in the way it was written. It
Mhm.
for and I'm trying to be careful how I word this because
Yeah,
I don't want
yeah,
the
yeah.
company
Of
to
course,
come for
bro.
me.
Like,
But what they did is that they worded it in a way where it would exclude straight white men, and I actually sat in on something like that, and I couldn't say anything because I was not in a position to
yeah,
fight
yeah,
back.
yeah.
But I have been in a few meetings where they have basically said that we need to hit a quota, but it's not on any sort of like written document.
Yeah, okay. I hear
This
what
is
you're
a
saying.
closed off
You're
conversation.
you're saying it's not a formalized thing.
Yeah,
It's not
it's
a
a
formalized thing.
conversation we've had for how the public is going to perceive our company.
Yes.
We need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have X, Y, and Z in, and X, Y, and Z might not be the best person for the job, but X, Y, and Z represents a certain way or looks a certain way. And because
Yes.
I've actually sat in on these sort of things happening, that's why I feel very strongly against it because it's not written anywhere, but these conversations are definitely happening.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. I'm not going to say all pushes of DI are absolved from what you've just described. This is to be honest, working in the US, I realize this place is full of schizophrenic people and everybody's mad and everyone overcorrects. Like it's a history of it's a
Overcorrect is the
country,
word, yeah.
it's a country of overcorrectiveness. Like I've never seen anything like it. But it's like when you look at the history of the country, it's just like oh, like we freed slaves, but now we've got Jim Crow to make sure that like we messed them up again, and
Yeah.
we have civil rights, and then they're like, oh, we like the 2.4 family, and we really like everything to be like white picket fence. But you know what? Now we're overcorrecting. We're gonna go full hippies. Everyone should have drugs. Everyone should have free love. Like this is the history of the country is constant overcorrection of just like, you know, and I do feel like uh, what is happening is a harmful stereotype or trope or an overcorrectiveness using DEI as a thing
Mm.
exists. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but saying that everyone now is DEI higher because they're black and they work in games. It's like
No, that's
you're kind.
ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
It's
I'm not
like
saying
now,
that.
like I know you're not. I
Mm.
know you're not. But I'm saying it kind of actually gets in the way of resolving it. It
Yeah.
actually gets in the way of like fixing or um yeah, because there are some things like I worked in a game, for example, Halo Wars 2. I was lead. I was in charge of all the characters and all the vehicles for that game.
Hmm.
And one of the inclusivity things that actually ended up saving the game was that one of the testers working on the game was a form of red-green colorblind, and he could not play the game because we had made the units and the grass like too similar in the color spectrum for
Oh, I
people
see.
with color blindness.
Hmm.
He literally couldn't play the game. Like he was just like, yeah,
I
I don't
think
know what
that's
I'm
a
doing.
smart use of it though, because that's literally allowing people to play the game.
Right. But I'm just saying that was a literal DEI thing. Like it was it was a it was written under the bracket of like this is an inclusive test.
Yeah.
And that allow 1 in 11 men in the US and UK have some form of red green color
Yeah.
blindness.
Yeah.
So that's affecting 10% of your sales potentially. So to make the game better. But that's why I'm saying like when people say like, oh, you should abolish your DEI, it's like I don't really think you actually understand what you're saying. You can say it's problematic and needs to be improved or like fixed or but then me saying like, oh, actually, like, because it was always simple. At first, it was like, oh, we have to have some inclusivity, like subtitles
Mm.
or whatever. And then someone saying like, oh yeah, the subtitles are cool, but the colors kind of mess up. I can't really read them because of my vision. That came from an inclusivity thing, or even
I think those things are
even
good though. I think that like you said with the overcorrection thing, I think some people have a tendency to go too far with things. But one thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned earlier is that I don't have a problem with going and contracting somebody that lives in Nigeria to understand how Nigeria works. I don't think
Mhm.
most people have that issue. I think people have issues with specific consultancy firms. Obviously, Sweet Baby Inc. is at the forefront of that. But
Why do you think that is?
well,
Why do you
I think one of the
like
reasons.
no? I'm legit open to like. Why do you think they have an issue with Sweet Baby? And I just want to hear it from your point of view
Yeah,
because you've espoused this,
yeah.
but I also feel safe hearing your point of view and listening.
Yeah. Okay, so Kimberly sits at the top of Sweet Baby Inc. And from what I understand, like with the people that have worked there, like Danny Lalondas, her viewpoints are sort of like it's from top down. And she said a couple of things that made me turn sideways. Firstly, whenever somebody says that I grew up playing these games and I never saw myself in the games, and she was talking physically, right? I've got in one of the videos. I never saw someone that looked like me. That already raises alarm bells because I'm like, that's not why majority of people connect with characters. They connect because of their reasoning and their logic and their personalities. And she said in another, I think it was at the, is it GDCC or GCD or something like that. She
GDC
said that
probably.
if they don't do what you want, if they don't do what you want, go and threaten the marketing team and get them to do what you want. And the way she worded it, which everyone's got the videos of online, was extremely aggressive to the point where it's like almost like Twitter mob mentality. Like if you don't do as I say, then we're going to basically drag you online because there's a vocal minority online that will pull you apart for not adding in a
Yeah, that's
certain
mad.
type of character. And then obviously with the whole white exclusion thing, Chris Kindred's comments about white people online. When there's enough voices in there, prominent voices that are saying things that, for me, don't help with telling good stories, excludes
Hmm.
a certain type of people. And then looking at some of the games that they've worked on, like there's that Sweet Baby Inc. Detected page that has a list of games that they might have worked on. I know some of them are not completely
Yeah, well,
accurate.
most of the games on that detected thing that
Yeah,
they didn't
like I
work
said,
on,
some
but
of them are
yeah,
not accurate. But if you go to their page, it
yeah,
has
sure.
what they've worked on,
Hmm.
and then their idea of what diversity is. You mentioned it earlier. Diversity in its like most primitive form is me, a female, a white dude, a guy with one leg or whatever, all sit in a room. That's just how we
Mm,
present. But real diversity is diversity of thought. And you could have 10 of us, you could have a bunch of black guys in the room, and we all think completely differently. That to me is
mm,
real diversity, which seems to go over their head completely. They feel like they need to have person X represented here. There needs to be a gay couple here. There needs to be this person needs to be shown in this piece of media, whether it's Spider-Man 2
mm,
or God of War. God of War is a good example. I I'll be honest with you, in a story that is based in around like the Vikings and Valhalla,
hmm.
when I saw the black character, I was a bit like, this seems a little bit out of place. I would think that most people would probably feel that way. Not because I don't like seeing my own people on screen, but it's just like this doesn't need to be there. I'm not gonna feel left out just because there's white Vikings on the screen. The same way if
Yeah.
you produced a Black Panther film and there was no white people in it, and then someone said there's no white people in this film, I'd be like, are you an idiot? Of course there's no white people in the film. Wakanda's like based in what, Uganda or wherever. So when they've got these ideas where they need to represent people,
Hmm.
not only does that come at the sacrifice of the narrative because it feels like you're changing things up for aesthetic purposes rather than telling a meaningful story. It also just feels like you're pandering in the worst way possible,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I don't get that from Japanese games a lot of the time, and the Chinese and Korean games I've gotten, I don't get that. Even though Japanese games have always featured black characters, if I go and
Fighting
look
games
at
definitely have.
fighting games, definitely like Tekken's probably the most diverse game on the planet, right? Everyone speaks their
Yeah.
own language, everyone's represented from
Yeah, not even Street Fighter has like
yeah,
nailed that language
and
thing.
you've
So
never heard anybody saying, "Oh, why is DJ there?" Nobody ever said anything. So I do think it's funny that they seem to think that we're all right wing racist grifters because black people are telling them it feels like you're pandering to us. But
mm.
I don't get this feeling when I'm watching an anime or if I'm playing a Japanese game. Like I was literally just watching this anime called Dandadan, and the main character's a female in it, right? And I guess
Hmm.
there's two main characters, but the most prominent one is a female character. I think this show's amazing. I think it's fantastic. But when you get female leads in American TV shows now or American games, it feels like they're not just there being a good character telling a good story. It's like we're here in spite of the patriarchy. We're here to wag our finger at you. We're here to tell you that we're as tough as you, that we can do exactly what you do. And I'm just like, just tell the goddamn story, man. If you wag your finger at me, I'm just going to turn the TV off. That's what I get
I
from
hate
Sweet
you.
Baby Inc. They feel like they're wagging their finger at me and they're telling me how I should think and how I should think about things, and I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, I hear everything you're saying. I would say it sounds like you have issues with individuals more so than the company. But like you said, you're looking at that because that's kind of all you have to work on.
It's all we have, right? If I
Um,
keep seeing a
yeah,
name pop up and every time I see that name
yeah,
pop up,
yeah.
it's like, oh my god, like I play the game, I don't like it. Their name's there, and it keeps on happening. I'm
I hear
like,
you.
okay, well, I can't name like, I just had a conversation with one of my friends in the UK, Justin Xavier. He runs Versus Fighting in
Hmm.
Birmingham, the big fighting game tournament, and we were talking about IGN, and I was saying to him, IGN's scoring system is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen because the actual scoring makes sense, but how they attribute it makes no sense. So
Yeah,
you
what
get
the things
games,
that they value,
yeah,
I understand. I've heard that from other people too.
yeah, but I don't know everybody that works at IGN. But if I see enough reviews coming out, I'm not gonna sit there going, oh, it wasn't Michael, it was Katie this time. It's like this is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
IGN. If people at IGN are not vetting their journalists properly, then I'm gonna point the finger at IGN.
That's fair. I hear what you're saying. Like you have to attribute people's individual statements to the company if that's all you've got to go on.
Yeah.
Um, but which makes I think it would be easier as well. It would almost be easier if there was a bit more transparency.
Mm.
Because I know Angrboda in God of War was a black character long before Sweet Baby were asked to help consult on and help on the script writing. And I know that Insomniac already decided to do a Miles Morales game set in set in that section of New York long before they asked them to come and help with the script for that too. And I know that, before Sweet Baby existed, Deadshot was already black.
Mm.
But so then I would say anytime I've seen a statement where they're like, oh, they're the ones in charge of making this character black or making this a woman is coming from them, I'd be I'm like, well, that's like objectively not true,
Mm.
but that doesn't mean that we can't have conversations about other things you might have issues with.
Yeah.
But I usually never get it usually never gets that far. The
Yeah.
conversation never gets to this point, Mike.
Yeah.
Like where we're having a like your point of view and then my point of view. Um, but I do think it's almost a bit silly that there isn't a true like it's a little bit silly that the companies themselves aren't truly saying like with a bit more transparency like what these people are doing or um what is their point, because there are times when they may have decided, because there is a consultant, that someone in the consultancy firm can be like, you need to actually remove this because this is tokenism.
Yeah.
This character should not be black because you've now put like a very superficial inclusion here. And I've seen more superficial inclusion from places that don't have a diverse group,
Mm.
where they're just like, yeah, we should just get a big black gay guy. They'll love that. It's like,
Yeah.
where is that even coming from? But like, I would say I've seen that be removed more than added
Mm.
from consultancy groups. But it's not just. It's also not just that. Like, I think sometimes it's the idea of a consultancy group is you kind of give them the package and you ask them to help you refine it, right? And so it's like, okay, we have this, and we're like, this villain is an ethnic minority. Like, can we? That's fine, but can we also show an example of that ethnic minority in the game who also not a villain? Just so it doesn't reinforce unconscious biases. So it's like, okay, yeah, this guy, like a good example is like Uncharted, is it Lost Legacy? I can't remember. The one with the anyway, it has
With
an
Nadine.
Indian Nadine being exactly. Nadine has a bit more of a nuanced kind of perspective. She's not like two-dimensional villain. She's actually quite a complex character, which works well against an Indian villain who doesn't really care about India's history. Whereas if he would just existed on his own, like maybe that would have just like, reinforced unconscious biases. But you kind of need a consultant to be like, it's fine to have this, but would you consider this? And we could write it this way. I can do some work on the script to improve that. Or be like, my biggest thing is like the more diversity you have, the more you have room to push something. So I'm of the belief you should have hypersexual women in games. And there should be like a character who's the Kim Kardashian in games, as long as at somewhere there's some room to show that not all women are like that, and there's another woman who maybe doesn't see herself that way. But the idea of removing all of them, it's like actually now you've created a different problem. You've overcorrected.
Mm.
But you almost you. The thing I've actually seen is the more women you have in diversity groups, often the more room there is to include some sexuality, because men in isolation out of sometimes they almost like become like white knights where they're like, oh no, we need to do the right thing, we need to etc, we need to like make sure like all the women are completely covered up, when it's like actually some women actually like to have like their body showing, or like they actually like the fact that they have some friends who like to have short skirts and stuff. There are some outfits
Mm.
that Harley has in Suicide Squad that wouldn't exist if the women on the team didn't say we really actually like that sexualized outfit,
Do you
because
think
men
it's
were like
the?
not sure.
Do you? Because that's interesting to me because like in my groups of friends or like people that I've known that work not on any big games but like on indie games, and they've been predominantly male groups. They've I don't want to say pushed to like have sexy outfits or whatever, but
Mhm.
I understand that women when Mortal Kombat was coming out, a lot of women were saying, why are they covering up all the girls? I saw a lot of girls
Some
creating
of them, yeah,
content.
some of them. Many women love to look at sexualized forms of women
Yeah.
too. I think their biggest issue is they just don't want every single woman to look like that.
Can
Then
I
it's
ask you
like
a
two
question though?
dimensional.
This is gonna
Mhm.
sound really bad. I don't know how else
No,
to
of
word it.
course.
It's not at you or anything. Do you think it's the type of guys that are working on these games?
Yeah, I think that's I think that's some of it. Some of it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Because I
some
don't
of
feel
it.
like if it was me and the boy, me and my boys, and obviously that would show a level of respect. But I don't feel like that would be an issue. I feel like some of the guys that I have seen working on these games,
Sometimes,
I don't know
yeah, I
what word
think
to use
so.
to describe them, but maybe a little bit.
Well, that's another point why you would want a diverse group of people working on the game. Like, just objectively, it would
Hmm,
be nice to have a different group. Some people who are Republicans, some people are conservative, some people are old, some people are young, some people
hmm.
from this place, some people went to college, some people who didn't go to college, they were busy having kids in high school. You almost like want that melting pot of people just to like because you're if especially if you're making a game that is reflective of the real world.
That's an
Like,
interesting point. Okay, so on that point, and I don't know if you'll know this because you don't work in some of these studios, but from what I've gotten from watching these people at the Game Awards and seeing how the discourse goes online, majority of them seem to be very hard left leaning. What is the what is the sentiment towards people that, let's say that they're Trump supporters? Would they have a place in a place like Sweet Baby Inc. or a lot of these like studios that develop these AAA games these days? Because they seem to be more liberal to me, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but it does. It's interesting that they're all about diversity, but the people that are a little bit more right leaning or center right or all the way right, I don't really hear those people speaking up in these AAA discussions. It seems to be the liberals are on this side and the right wing people are over here, and they're not typically people in the AAA gaming space. That's just what from what I can observe.
um, that's not true. Yeah, I think the liberals are super, super vocal,
Mm.
and they're actually from the middle to level low down.
Hmm.
Like, because it's usually they're under age 30
Okay.
are usually
Yeah,
more
yeah.
liberal, and they're the ones that are on Twitter all day. They're the ones that go to these events and take photos and blah blah blah. But then I've also been in direct meetings where someone's just like, "Hey, we're thinking about making this character like gay," and the director in the meeting has been like that makes me want to throw up in my mouth. Like, so I have seen
Yeah.
the full spectrum um of points of view in the industry because I've worked at so many places. I've
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
at a lot of places. But
Because I'm only seeing it from Twitter. I'm seeing one side of
yeah,
conversation.
which is, I mean, that's another thing, you know. That's why if you're following the wrong people, you assume everyone's racist like me. Yeah,
Yeah.
we finally can all be like,
Hmm.
because you might just only follow those grifters and
Hmm.
see thousands of other likes on the grifter content and be like, yeah, we're all secretly racist. Now we can just be, and it's like, actually, the world isn't really like that. A lot of
Yeah.
people, they actually just don't even care about other races
Yeah.
rather
Yeah. Yeah.
than like hate them. They're just ambivalent. They're just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I try to not
um,
follow anyone in particular, but obviously because the discourse exists on YouTube and Twitter, when
yeah,
I'm follow,
you can't escape
you
that for
can't
sure.
escape it. But from what I can see, you've got like obviously Grum's pops up everywhere. I see his tweets everywhere, and then you've on the other side of the conversation, you see like Alyssa McCante or whatever. And whenever
Yeah.
I'm looking at this discourse, one side seems to be right, and the other side seems to have like pronouns in bio, flags all over the bio. And to me, it looked like there was a divide, and I didn't know because there's always this conversation about diversity in the actual studios, not at director level, in the actual studios or the consultancy firms. At a consultancy firm like Sweet Baby Inc. or maybe the one that worked on Silent Hill, is there a
Mhm.
place for people that have more center right or right leaning views?
I personally believe that there are people who are. I think that there is a prejudice that people assume that if you're diverse, you're not right leaning, and I
Mm.
don't really know where that comes from. Especially because I got Caribbean parents. They're just like historically
Oh, what Caribbeans are like.
church going people.
Yeah, yeah.
They're highly conservative anyway, and
Mm.
so I don't know why people assume that these places that I don't know the core team of Sweet Baby. I just know people they reach out to that they ask be like, hey, can you come and look at this for us? Because we don't know. Like this game is set in a certain part of Finland or whatever. Can you come in and talk about this thing? I'm sure that there's a good percentage of those people who are like have their political views that maybe don't align with the people who started the company, but that's not why they're being hired. They don't be like, how do you feel about like, this policy? I don't think that's what's happening. I From everything I see, it's much more to do with we need this person who's skilled in this thing, and their personal politics isn't really going to help whether or not we get like Jotunheim correct. It's actually their Viking history that's helpful. And
Yeah.
then I also think that the climate kind of makes people respond in a way where if you have a problem with something, then you get assigned like a view. Because I don't I grew up watching Power Rangers, which
Mm.
is the wokest thing ever in if you brought it out now. Like, a group of kids from every single race and both genders, and and then they also have like like a deep appreciation for each other's differences and their multiple colors and stuff like that. I don't know if you could bring out something like that without someone attributing you to, well, this is just woke nonsense, or no, I love this because of the diversity, rather than just saying
I actually think it'd
I
be the
just
other
like
way.
that, it's cool.
I think it'd be the other way. I think if you brought up Power Rangers now, I think the more diverse people would have a problem with it because you had the Yellow Ranger was Asian
Oh yeah, the
and
the colors they assigned, yeah, that would probably be an issue. All right,
yeah,
with that one change though, if you made the black guy the Yellow Ranger, I
yeah.
wonder how it would play out. I wonder how it would play out.
Yeah, I don't know
Um,
because I grew up watching like the Super Sentai stuff and all that Kamen
yeah,
Rider, which is
okay,
Power
yeah,
Rangers all
yeah,
inspired by that. So
yeah.
I saw the
They
other
just,
side of it. Power Rangers, I guess, is a good example as well. I think on both sides would probably be a conversation on how it's presented.
yeah.
But again, like what you were talking about with like bringing people in, the only reason I asked that is because I've seen some instances of it in other parts of media, like in Hollywood, where people come out as being more right leaning and they're ostracized. Uh, there's been a couple of actors like Gina Carano who, I heard
Yeah, she blocked me, boy. I must have said
she
the wrong
blocked
thing.
you.
She blocked, yeah, blocked by Gina.
Well, I
I
was
can't remember. I can't remember what I said. I must have said something that was just like, I don't think she should have said that or something, and it got a lot of likes, and then she just blocked me, and I was just
the
like,
thing
all
is
right,
that
cool.
what's his name? Pedro Pascal has made, in my opinion, equally controversial tweets,
Mhm.
and he's not obviously been shunned because he's more left leaning. But when she came out and made the tweet that she did, which to be honest with you, I didn't really see it as like it wasn't like it wasn't like an apocalyptic tweet. It was like, I was just like, whatever, man, it's her opinion. She was basically kicked off the Mandalorian. I know the guy that played Hercules in Hercules Legendary Journeys. He got into a whole argument with the woman that played Xena on Princess Warrior because he came out as right leaning as a Trump supporter. So I didn't know if that also extended to the gaming industry, where to me it looks even more liberal in the AAA space than Hollywood to a certain extent. I didn't know if there was a space for people that were not just censor right but hyper right leaning to work in those spaces and coexist openly, knowing that maybe these people support the whole Roe v. Wade thing, maybe these people support Trump, would
Uh,
Sweet Baby employ people like that? From what they've been tweeting out about like white people, what some game journalists have been saying about chuds and whatever, or like or some game developers, to me it didn't seem like the most diverse working environment. And
mm,
just to give you a little bit of background about me,
mhm.
I'm not a games developer by any stretch of the
Yeah, yeah.
imagination, but I know enough of them in the UK and I know people that work in the gaming space. And I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm right or left leaning. I think I sit kind of in the center. And
Yeah,
I've said things in front of people before, and they've tried to exclude me from certain meetups or certain situations where like I would usually be invited. And I know that if I hadn't said what I said, I would have been welcomed in those spaces. So I can only imagine in a place like America where overcorrection is the name of the game, that
yep,
must be worse than the UK. If someone that's not a games developer, has experienced it, I imagine if like you came out today saying I'm a Trump supporter, I don't think women should be able to get abortions, this, that, and the other,
yeah.
your jobs or your future opportunities might be at risk.
I would say that that is a diversity problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That is a diversity problem. You should be in an environment where, as long as you're not harming people, there should be an encouragement for diversity of thought.
Yeah,
Like, I can't say like I know the hiring practices of Sweet because it's not like where I don't I've just worked with a few of them before, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
were like really good writers. Like when you just see something, it's like, right, that was sick. Like,
Mm,
um, I don't know about like the personal affiliations, but I also don't believe that they're all left leaning. Like
okay.
that just doesn't really that doesn't really make sense to me because I know of how much the broad streams of consultancy goes. Like, but I just think as a whole, especially in California, there is a diversity problem,
Yeah,
and the problem is it's either underrepresentation or overcorrection. Like, and that takes time to figure out. It actually does take a bit of time to figure out, especially when you got voices online just chatting and chatting and saying like, just. And to be honest, there are some things that I accept that I may be wrong on
yeah,
too. Like, I may be wrong. I have personally never seen a place that has quotas before. That
yeah.
doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I have to accept. Maybe it does exist in some form, but I personally have seen situations where we're like, well, you can't make a quota. That's like against the rules. You can't do a quota. You can just have it as a consideration that you should at least. Because I believe in quotas for um interviewing practices.
Hmm.
Personally, if you're
Yeah,
like, we need a new writer for this game, I think that if you're gonna interview 12 people, there should be at least two or three people of color and maybe three or four women just interviewed. It's fine if you don't hire them, but you should at least include that number if possible. If they're not qualified, they're not qualified. If they're not sick, they're not sick. So I do believe in quotas for like opening opportunity to like because I mean, when I got hired to be in the game industry, I was just better than the other people. But like, it may have been an issue that I didn't go to like a brilliant school or I didn't have relatives who worked in the game industry. They're just like, oh, we have to give them a fair shot and
mm.
see. And so,
No,
yeah, I do
I get
believe
where you're
in
coming
quoting that
from.
sense.
I get where you're coming from because
Yeah,
with like I never experienced it before because I didn't
yeah,
have as many subscribers. But now that like things have picked up, I've seen people saying, "Oh, you people are just watching you because you're half black and it's like a sympathy thing," or some silly comments like
yeah.
that.
People will say shit like that. Be
Yeah.
like, yeah,
So I know people make dumb comments. I do think that there's like I said, like I've seen situations where I think it's unjust to do that to people, like not hiring white people to do certain jobs. I think is not good. I think it's just the pendulum's going to swing back and it's going to happen again the other
yeah,
way, and I
yeah.
don't think that's the way to correct it. I think like if I was making a game, I would open it up to everybody. I don't care if you're trans or you've got one leg. If you can do the job, it's okay. But
That's part of it. That is
yeah,
part of it.
but if it turned out that my whole development team were white dudes, then I'd just be like, that's just the way it is, guys. But if I went online, I'd probably be called like, oh, he hates his own people. This is not diverse. But really,
It
it's nothing to do with that. It's just the best man for the job, right?
Yeah, but then that whole best man for the job is like there's a subtext to there. There is a subtext to there. When you have like, oh well, it should be best man for the job. That tells me you inherently don't believe that people of color or women can be qualified. Not what you. I'm just saying when people sometimes say that,
Mm.
there is a bit of a subtext of like, oh, it's just best man for the job. It's like when you see a company that has a diverse group. Are you telling me you don't believe that maybe some of those people are the best man for the job?
No,
Like,
what, me personally?
no, I'm just saying those people who say
Mm,
that. I'm not saying you believe that. I'm
yeah,
saying it's hard to decipher the subtext
yeah, yeah. No,
where
I agree
when
with that.
people go down that lane and they show a picture of like the old Quake development group and it's like, here is a development crew that was based on merit. And it's like 25 white guys from 1996 or whatever it
Mm.
was. And you're just like, they probably were the best people for the job at that time. Like but if the best people from the job today, like if you was to look at who the best, like even to this day, people tell me like, oh, you know, Suicide Squad is like a terrible game. It's like, yeah, but can you actually make a character model better than Deadshot?
Mm.
Though,
I
like
think
can
that
you or can someone else? Like, yeah,
I hear what
it's
you're
like
saying.
they
I hear what
only,
you're saying. I think
yeah,
that the only issue that I would have is that I tend to not like the reason I haven't covered Dragonborn is because I haven't played it. So
yeah. I think that's
I
fair. That's
yeah,
really smart.
I haven't played it, and the only reason I covered Silent Hill 2 is because Silent Hill is one of my favorite franchises, and I thought
Okay.
I'll get around to it. But with what you were saying there is I won't cover a game if I see a bunch of women that have created the game that used to be predominantly men just to hate on it. I'll be like, okay, they've switched out the development team. There's a more diverse group there. Let's see how the game turns out. If the game turns out fine, whatever. But if the game comes out crap and I feel like there's a bunch of finger wagging in it, then I'm gonna look at who's on the writing team. And
Mm.
I think although I don't like to I try to not put people in a box based on how they present because like my sister's got pink hair, so sometimes when people see her come on my channel, they're like, "Oh, Michael, he's lost himself" or whatever. But I do
Yeah,
think,
they're just making weird stereotypes.
yeah, yeah. But I do also think that if I this is gonna sound really bad, and I apologize if I offend anyone in the chat, but I'm
You
just gonna
can't
say
offend me.
not you, but if I offend anyone in
Okay.
the chat, I'm just gonna say if I play a game that was predominantly, let's say, Gears of War, like a
Hmm.
super, like typically masculine game, it's got themes
Hmm.
of brotherhood and duty and sacrifice, and then I play a new Gears of War game, and those themes are all gone, and Marcus Phoenix isn't there, and it's a different team, and there's a few more women on the team, and sometimes the women are saying, "Hey, I can do what you can do." To
Yeah.
the guy over there, and then I look at the development team, and I see a woman with short blue hair, I'm gonna start raising my eyebrow. I think that's fair. It might not be fair, but I think I wouldn't judge her there and then, but I would raise my eyebrow and be like, okay, I'm gonna start asking questions now.
Yeah. I think the sad thing about that is that I don't think if you're not in a marginalized group that you get treated that way,
If
you
sorry,
know.
say that again.
If you're not from a marginalized group and you make something shit, people don't attribute it to the way you look or the way you are.
But what's a marginalized group? Everything other than white guys.
No, because marginalized group could mean someone who's white and poor. Like if you're
Mm,
just white man and you came from a wealthy family. Let's just say that. If you're from that and you make something that's shit, people don't look at you and attribute it to your group.
mm-hmm,
They say he is shit. Whereas if if Mike Hollow says something on his YouTube channel and he gets a lot of hate from it,
mm-hmm.
someone could look and be like, this is why certain black guys they don't know what they're talking about. Like they and attribute it to the group.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's always made me feel away. Like
I hear
I'm
that.
not saying that's what you did. I'm just saying that always makes me feel away that people are just like, oh, it's the blue hair, or
Mm,
oh, clearly he's a man of color because this is why.
mm-hmm.
Whereas if you look like flipping what's his name? Hugh Jackman and you mess up, I don't know if that would be the like
I hear
to some degree, to some degree, to some
I
degree, like
completely hear
to
what you're saying. That's why I said I wouldn't jump on them straight away. I'd raise my eyebrow.
yeah.
But the raising the eyebrows like me now. I'm gonna start asking questions. When I say that, like I know it's really difficult and it almost sounds pointless to say this, but I can't speak for everyone. But when I look at a game, I treat white dudes the same way. So if I played a game, right? Let's say
Mhm.
that let's say that a new GTA game came out and or maybe GTA is not the best example. Let's just say a new game came out where you're controlling a white dude, but everything this white dude does is racist. Everything that
Yeah.
comes out of his mouth is racist. I'll probably stop and be like, okay, let's take a look at the development team. And
Yeah.
if I see a pattern, then I'll say the same thing. So I think I can't speak for everyone. I completely hear where you're coming from. I've
Yeah,
seen it
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Of course, there's room on the other side. If I see, the development group and they've all got the conservative flag in their Facebook profiles
Yeah,
with like red hats,
yeah,
I'm gonna make sense. I totally see what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
I'm just saying it does seem a little bit more like it
Y-
does sometimes feel like
It's
two
happening
things.
more.
One, you're targeting a group, and
Mm,
sometimes I get more upset when you're targeting a group who can't even change the way they look.
yeah.
Like, yeah, there's people I straight up don't agree with at all. There's a guy, what's his name on Twitter? Mugen Lord. I don't agree with anything that guy
I
says,
don't think I've ever seen him before. What
but
what what kinds of
he,
things does he say?
well, he's just echoes a lot of the stuff Graham says.
Okay.
But I've seen people call him a coon. I've blocked him now anyway, whatever. But I've seen people call him a coon, and I get pissed off at those people.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, bro, just because he doesn't agree with your point of view, and he doesn't agree with my life perspective or point of view,
yeah.
like, why are you? Why is he automatically can like use? It's so safe to use a derogatory term against that person. So I see it from both points of view. I
Of
do see
course,
it from both points of view, but
I understand where
the
you're coming
device,
from as well. Like I
yeah,
completely
the
get that.
divisiveness is just yeah, it's messed up. Divisiveness is messed up, and racism is real. It is real. Like that's a real thing.
Yeah, I
Like
I get where you're coming from completely. And the thing is, someone's just sent a super chat and they've said that, like, I get what you mean, Dale. It feels sometimes that minorities and especially us as black people don't get the privilege of individuality.
right,
That's from TJ, and I was actually going to touch on
perfectly,
that. Thank you for the
perfectly
donation,
explained.
TJ. But what I was going to say is that I made a video on a individual the other day called Johnny Somali. I'm sure you probably heard of him.
Yeah,
He's a
I got issues with that guy as well.
I think the
Like
whole world's
what?
got issues with him.
Well, to be honest, the fact he named himself Johnny Somali and he's not even from Somalia, he
Yeah,
knows
yeah.
exactly what he's
He
doing,
knows what he's
bro.
doing. Yeah. But what I wanted to say was that there was a fair amount of comments on there that were saying this is black culture, this is what black
Yes.
people do, which is upsetting for me because I've always been into Asian culture, like Japanese stuff, Chinese. Some of my friends are Chinese, Korean stuff. I've
Yeah.
always been fascinated with their cultures. When I
Yeah.
went over to Japan, it was the best time I ever had. he
Same.
I feel like he set race relations back between blacks and Asians 100 years, and I've got people in the video commenting
Yeah.
saying N word this, N word that. You
Yeah.
blacks have got below 60 IQ level. This is what you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as someone was saying that to me, I went on Twitter and I saw these black people in a Asian supermarket just destroying everything, fighting with each other, shouting the
Yeah,
N word, and I
man.
was like, it's really annoying because the people that are saying it's all of us are also low IQ individuals.
Yeah, of
But
course.
it's
That
hard
it
to make an
too.
argument when this is spread all over Twitter. Johnny's out there doing a whole bunch of nonsense. So I
Yes.
get where you're
And
coming from,
because
where
of
everyone
what
gets
TJ
lumped in.
said,
Yeah,
where we don't get the privilege of individuality. They don't see those people and be like, those people are idiots.
yeah,
Like, and that in itself is like hard to fight. And I wish people would just be more open to be like that. Yeah, I don't like these people saying this, or I don't like these people working on my games. It's like, what do you mean by these people, bro? Like, like that's
yeah,
a
yeah,
mad statement.
yeah. Yeah, it is
Um,
a mad statement. I get it. That's why I paused when I said uh like blue head short woman, because I understand how it sounds. I get it.
yeah,
I I would be lying if I didn't say that. I also understand why, if somebody looked at like Dragon Age, for example, and they said, let me look up the lead developer or whatever, and they saw pronouns in bio and colored hair, that they would not raise an eyebrow. I'd be lying to you and like playing a character if I said that I don't understand that as well. So I get it from both sides. It's very, very irritating. I
Yeah.
don't really know the best course of action to navigate that because I feel like the waters have been muddied so much and damage has been done on both sides that maybe a conversation like this is the best way to go.
This is not a common conversation, bro. This is not a common conversation. I'll tell you that. Like, yeah, it's very tough to have these conversations and assume that the other person is gonna give you a fair shake.
We got Abu Bakr Salim in the chat.
Oh
He
man, like
donated
Abu.
99. Thank you, Abu Bakr. Bro. I appreciate that. He said, loving this chat, fellas. Mad respect for this. Need more content and conversation like this. Conversation coming from a place of education and progression instead of hate. Yeah, that's basically what I was trying to like put across to some other people. I'm not gonna throw them under the bus or anything, but I was saying to them
Yeah.
that even though I've had my problems with the industry, I don't hate people personally. Like I've tried to talk to
Yeah.
people in the UK before, and they're not willing to entertain the conversation. I've said to them, I'm not gonna attack you. Like I'm not going to. It's not gonna turn to a fist fight. I'm not gonna do anything like that. I just want to have a conversation because
Mm.
from where I'm standing, some of the groups in the UK feel like they're using black people to push their groups forward. It doesn't feel like
Yeah,
they're
of course.
genuinely trying to create a space where
We s-
maybe
we saw that when everybody was doing massive diversity drives after George Floyd. They're like, we're gonna overhaul our diversity. We're gonna add new DEI teams, and I was like, cool. Let's see how long this lasts, isn't it? Like,
yeah, no,
and
100%.
then definitely seen that, like, jump on the bandwagon vibes.
Yeah, I don't know
Um,
like how else to really go about it other than like trying to invite people on to talk about it to get their perspective because hopefully
yeah.
enough people will see this and be able to maybe change their opinions on the individual. But it's
Well,
difficult.
I don't know if it's about changing people's opinions, but I would say that the anti-woke push is doing the opposite of what they want it to.
Yeah, I feel like it's
Because
gotten
it's
that way.
really obvious that they're not open to discussion.
Hmm.
Because I kind of come in from an outsider point of view where I'm saying maybe there is some overcorrection. Maybe it doesn't make sense that you make a sequel to a game. There's 20 characters and 19 of them um are all of these different types of people and there's only one white male. That kind of just that's weird to me if the demographic that you're trying to sell to is based in America where that's not like that just in the same way as if I made a game in China like and there was only one Chinese character and 19 not like that's an overcorrection, that's weirdness, but
Yeah.
let's come from a point of view of like how did this happen, how did we get to this point of view, and is it even okay for this? Maybe you're just like that's fine because that's the type of game we was trying to make, because you don't get that in movies. Like I said, you can go and make whatever kind of movie you want, and
Mm.
if you're like, yeah, this movie is blah blah blah, it's kid outhood, the whole point is it's meant to be this people, it's not meant to be representative of all these types. People are a bit more understanding, but for some reason with games, the audience feels like they have a level of ownership.
Mm.
Um where they're just like, well, why don't they appease to me? Or why don't they appease to more of their public? It's like, yeah, like you could argue that of a film. Like,
I think it's
why
because
make Moonlight?
it's more interactive. I feel people feel a little bit more connected with games. I
That's
feel like
true.
they feel that way with comics as well. Because I think sitting down and watching a movie is a little bit more disconnected than opening a
True.
comic book and reading about Peter Parker or turn on a game and investing 80 hours into it to then
Yeah,
have
yeah,
the
that's true.
follow up.
It's just an hour and 20 minutes of your time.
Yeah. Are you okay to answer questions from the chat for people that are sending donations in?
If they make sense, sure.
Don Williams, the 4.99 donation said, "Do you think the insiders go into Endymion and Smash JT are genuine or even truthful or real?" I'm happy to speak openly about it if you want to. Like I've never spoken to
Yeah.
Endymion before, but me and Smash JT are cool. We get on.
I I don't like these people
Hmm.
based on their perspectives.
Okay.
Like, I don't like these people. So when they say these insiders, one, I'm gonna have my personal bias that I'm not gonna believe you because it looks like you chat shit.
Hmm.
Like, like I just like objectively, I don't hold a lot of weight with what those guys are. Even having people like JT having that super racist guy on his chat, and he's like, why is that your brethren? Like, why is that? Why is that your friend? Like, why is
Mm,
that your guy? Like, all of that stuff
yeah,
gives me too much of a bias for you to trust my response. But my
yeah,
response is, why do you think those insiders are going to them instead of someone like at a different, um, like a different outlet? Because these outlets would get so much hits. If
yeah.
IGN came out and was just like, yeah, there was a plan to, crush white voices, you don't think they want the likes from that article?
Mm.
So
I
I
do
don't
think.
see a history of like truth coming from these people. So, but I'm just one person. It's just my
Mm.
perspective. I don't see it being real
Well,
personally.
one
That's
thing
just my
that
point
I
of view.
noticed the other day, although Grums apologized for this, but he basically put out some information about,
Exactly. Yeah.
and I was like, I looked at the document and I said,
That looks sad. Spelling mistakes and
yeah,
everything.
I looked and I was like, how the hell did you... Even before I saw, I don't know what the podcast name is, but I was watching some guy react to it because his company got dragged into it. And I looked at the document. I was like, this looks fake as hell. Why has he tweeted this out? And then the next day he came out saying, I'm sorry, blah blah blah. But when he did that, I didn't say anything about it because I was like, I'm not gonna rag on somebody because they made a mistake. But at the same time, you've kind of become the most prominent voice in this push against
Article. Yeah.
aggressive
Everyone
DEI.
who, if you're putting your name behind something, you have to be okay with people like saying you're chatting shit
Yeah.
if it turns out to be that you're chatting
But
shit.
my point was is that it looked so fake that when
Yeah.
he did
It
that, I was
looks
like,
it
this
looks so
almost
dumb.
feels like rather than completing the mission at hand or whatever it is that you're trying to do, it just now it feels like I just want to take these people down just because. And because I looked at the document, I was like, this looks like the most fake shit I've ever seen. Even the cursor was
Yeah.
at the top. It wasn't even a...
It was still blinking, yeah.
Yeah, and I
It
was
was
like, bro, what are you doing? And that made... I'm not going to shun him for making a mistake, but that level of mistake was a bit like, this seems more like you were just trying to get a click, the first piece of information out there rather than
yeah.
verifying your sources. And which is again why I don't make... Some people will message me going, why haven't you spoken about this, why haven't you spoken about that? I was like, first of all, I can't be in 10 places at once, and if I just continuously make videos about random stuff that is unverified, that hurts my credibility and it doesn't really help anything anyway. I'm not
Sure.
trying to take someone's head off when I'm doing these things. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what might be a
Well,
problem.
it gets in the way of like it gets in the way of real conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
It gets in the way of real conversation. You can say, I don't really like this push for censorship in video games, and come from a nuanced point of view and be like, here are my objective examples where I think that there's an increased amount of censorship,
Mm,
or there does seem to be a focus on these protective groups, which is fine, but I would also expect there to be like some level of focus that goes on heteronormative people as well. Like, but that's not how they're coming through. And so
mm,
it kind of hurts their own, like it hurts any conversation of being like, yeah, all right, yeah, I see where you're coming from. Like, this makes sense, or maybe there is a bit of an overcorrection here, or maybe there like none of the conversation is that way,
yeah.
and so it tells me that you're not actually interested in resolution.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it tells me. It tells me you're not really interested in resolution.
Yeah.
It tells me that you're here to chat shit and get clicks.
Get paid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
I know. I
course,
do. I do get that sense from some people. I completely agree with that. I got another question for you. I think this is a good question.
Yeah, of course.
Nefstar donated £5 and he said there are grifters on YouTube and Twitter, but without naming names, do you think there are any grifters within the games journalist slash media sphere? I have my opinions on this, but I'll let you go first.
The thing that makes it hard to say that someone could be a grifter is like, what do we mean by that term?
Hmm.
Like, because
I have my
I could,
definition on it if you want me to give it.
yeah, I'd like to know. I'd like to know because we have to be careful about what we're saying. So,
Yeah.
what would you consider a grifter?
So I think one of the most blatant examples of grifting was the discourse around Sun Wukong from IGN and believe Games Radar.
Sure.
We
What was that?
so
Fill me in.
a lot of this game was basically being propped up as like being the game of the year. Everyone was really excited for it. And one of the things that came out is that there was sexual harassment going on in the workplace at the studio that
At the
was
studio.
yeah.
I remember. Well, that article came out years before, but it like re-came up, didn't it? I
Yeah.
remember.
So in the articles leading up to the release of Wukong, they kept on saying they'll talk about something being like, oh, it might not release on Xbox and sexual harassment, or like the game's not optimized for PC and sexual harassment. And Chinese YouTubers came out and were basically saying that's not what the guy said in the interview. In the mistranslation, they said that he wanted to hire people so that they could basically lick him off or like get him off or whatever. And it was mistranslated. And the Chinese YouTubers were saying that he's not saying that. He's not saying that were harassing people in the workplace. It was a mistranslation. And IGN just continuously peddled that story. And to me, that came across as grifting for your side and grifting for views because those articles are going to get clicks. Potentially the biggest game in the world at the time is about to drop, and you're talking about it, but you're shining this really negative light on it, and you've got Chinese people saying to you that's not what he said, and they're walking around with eyes wide shut, and they're going, no, this is what he said, and they continuously keep peddling it. And then on the games radar side of it, one of the reasons that they marked it down was that it lacked diversity, and I was like, what do you mean it lacks
Yeah,
diversity? You're
that
running around as a
I posted
monkey.
about that. That doesn't make any flipping
Yeah,
sense.
so for
Yeah,
me, those are
that doesn't
examples
make any
of
flipping
people like
sense.
grifting for their side of the conversation. You already know
Yeah,
this is basically defamation. You've been told it's defamation 100 times. Everyone's covered this. People that speak Chinese, people that don't. I featured a Chinese YouTuber on here that spoke about it. I asked my friend's wife, can you translate this because she speaks and she reads, and she was like, that's not what he's saying, and they just continue to say it. So I would say the
yeah,
people that were taking part in that discourse are like clear definitions of what grifters are. Just continuing to peddle bullshit for clicks and views when you know that's not the case.
yeah. I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, because I remember that it was because there was a few people who commented it on it fairly and said what he said could be seen as sexist, which I'm like, I guess you could see it because his whole point was I want to hire people until they and I just want to get licked off and
Yeah,
and it was like he was talking reckless,
yeah.
but it wasn't a sexual assault, right? It was like you're just saying what you want and
But he wasn't even. He never
it's
said lick either. It was more adoration when it was translated from Google, whoever
oh
translated it.
really? Okay.
Yeah, the mistrans because
Well he
I've learned to
okay.
speak a little bit of Japanese and I've learned to read hiragana and katakana a little bit. And I know
Okay.
that when you Japanese is a very like contextual language, and you
Yeah.
can use the same word
Yeah,
in
depending on the word surrounding it, it can actually change the
or even
meaning
even
for
the
sure.
scenario. I could say a
Yeah,
particular
that makes
word
sense.
and it
Yeah.
changes, and they
But
knew that and they continuously said it over and over.
I'm not arguing that point because I'm not arguing against it or for it because I'm not Chinese enough to know. But but I can see how there's I c- I don't know if I would fit that in the same way as grifting
Okay.
personally
Okay.
because that just sounds like bad journalism. Like that's just straight up bad
So
journalism.
what would you say
Whereas
is grifting?
where you're getting monetary gain from it, like
Is IGN not
where
getting
like
monetary gain?
like you have 100 YouTube videos
Hmm.
all monetized, and every day you get on YouTube, open up the camera, and you're like, guess what the woke agenda has done today, and you just find something to fit in. Like
Yeah.
that's like real grifting, especially when you factor in some of these people don't really believe what they're saying too.
Hmm.
Like it's just working. It's hitting the algorithm versus these people who have a personal bias, perhaps, who may have a personal bias where they're like, you're kind of seeing what you hoped to see, and you're writing that with a bend towards that. But yeah, like because journalism has certain levels of like there is some journalistic integrity there. there had to be a story. They didn't make a story. They didn't email themselves an email and be like, "Oh, I've just got insider from blah blah, and he's saying that at Naughty Dog this happened, and like, and it never happened." There's some level of journalistic integrity that kind of separates it, um, from just straight up. I'm grifting because I need to find something to make money from. Small scale making money from. But that doesn't absolve either side. I'm not saying that there couldn't be some nuance on both sides of the conversation.
Can I ask you
The
then?
problem yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you if they find out the truth and they continue to peddle the lie?
Yeah, that's
Isn't
fucked
that the
up. Yeah,
same
that's
as
fucked up. If you find out the truth and you're still carrying on, that's fucked up. Yeah,
yeah? Then
then
you're
you're straight
grifting.
up bullshit. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
then you're a
I
bullshitter.
don't know what the monetary gain is for people to click on a website and read an
Doesn't
article.
matter. From once you're carrying on and you know the truth, you're a bullshitter. Like
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
different.
Yeah. So we kind of agree then. I think the people that are coming on here and making the relentless, just like every little thing, anti-work this, anti-work that. I could probably agree with you. Not all. I wouldn't put all of them in the same boat. I think some people do some good work.
Well, that's my point. They all get put in the same boat because there's no room for nuance. Like
Mm.
they're hurting themselves. They're hurting themselves. It's just in the same way someone saying like, oh, we should kill all of the white men. All of the white men, we should take them and kill them all. Is getting put in the same category as someone saying like, hey, is it cool if you guys just stop being racist? Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that would be nice.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
those people being extremists are
Mm.
destroying any room for progression.
Mm. I've got another
And
question here for you as well.
yeah,
It's from Burn Baby. Thanks, Burn Baby, for 4.99. He said, "Do you see value? I don't know if you know these people, so if you don't, it's fine. But do you see value on getting people like you, or Abzi from side scrollers, or Hypnotic? Would you speak to people like that?"
no, like hypnotic. No, I don't believe. I just don't personally believe that I've seen anything that would make that person say, you know what? I never
Mm.
really saw it from that point of view.
Mhm.
Like just that sentence alone.
Mhm.
I haven't seen any evidence of that. Whereas I have literally seen you do that on your channel.
Yeah.
Like I've literally seen you say like, oh, I don't know, maybe I kind of saw kind of from a weird point of view. Maybe I don't have all the facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Use like open to interpretation, and you're not monetizing hate. What it looks like monetizing hate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no,
like,
I'm not above saying sorry. I mean, these guys have called me out
yeah,
before. I had a horrible take on Tekken once, and they roasted me for it. And I said, you know what? I went back and read it, and I was like, yeah, that was dumb. But I'm not above saying sorry. One thing I got from the conversation that I had with Ryan, who was the guy that I had a problem with for making racist comments against Abu Bakr, was at one point I asked him, "Would you say sorry? Is there anything you would say sorry for in this space? Not in obviously in life. I'm sure if he did something wrong, he'd probably say sorry to like his mom or whatever. But in this space, would you say sorry?" And his response was, "You can't say sorry because the woke mob, they'll come for you. You need to like basically plant your feet in the ground and not give any ground." And I was like, "Yeah, but then you're just being disingenuous, right? Because if you genuinely feel like you did something wrong, it's fine to say sorry. You shouldn't be so insecure that you're
yeah.
worried that a bunch of
That's a
people."
cowardly That's cowardly, isn't it?
That's what I said. I thought it was pretty
That's
cowardly.
cowardly, bro. Like I think there's strength in saying sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
that's what I said.
I think you're strong if you can say sorry. I think you're strong
Yeah,
because
I do think.
children cry before they say sorry when they're
Yeah,
little. You're like, say sorry to your brother. They start crying
yeah, yeah.
because it's hard.
I think that there's two sides to it. Like I do think people get pressured into saying sorry, and I think those people can be pretty weak-willed as well. But I think what I was trying to
Yeah,
get across to him is that like if I had you on here today, and I disrespected you by accident, and you reached out to me and said, "I don't like the way you spoke to me," I'll just say, "Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
bro. I didn't even realize I did that."
yeah. That's what
Um,
I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean.
yeah, I don't know why
Yeah,
people are like that. I think it's really really weird for people to be like that. But um, oh, I think that question was to me. Would I have Hypnotic on here? Yeah, I already spoke to Hypnotic. We did a stream together. We obviously we didn't agree, but he wasn't rude to me
yeah.
or anything. Like it wasn't like
I don't necessarily think these people would be like quote unquote directly rude to me in a chat. I
you just think the
their
convo
chat
won't
would.
go anywhere.
I just don't think the convo would go anywhere. Like I don't think it would be useful.
Hmm.
Like Um, and I think that's kind of the problem what's happening with the United States as a whole. Like
Yeah.
people are just going further and further apart,
Yeah.
and it's like, yo, it's not a good place where you can't even have a chat.
Yeah, no,
Like
it's
it's
happening
not
over
even a
here.
good.
Like what's going? Because obviously, I think you're electing your president tomorrow, right?
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
I'm not. I don't have a vote, but
yeah,
yeah, tomorrow. Yeah,
yeah. So
boy, that's gonna be mad. No matter what happens, it's gonna be mad.
it's gonna be mad. I mean, over here in the UK, we see it like a season on Netflix, but it does affect us as well. Like I've had
Yeah, of course it
conversations
does.
with people
Of course it
just now
does.
when I was at Comic Con, and I had a conversation with somebody, and you could really get the sense that people are. Yeah, I felt like I was in America. I was like, I'm not even over there, and it feels like you want to tear my head off. We can't just have a healthy
Yeah.
disagreement, which is weird for me because uh, Ellie, who's been on this channel multiple times, is very, very, very left leaning, and I'm more in the center, and we get on just fine. And I never really understand why people can't just have conversations about things and not rip each other's heads off.
It's because that you're dealing with a person who is sincere in hearing you.
Mm.
They haven't made up the mind that you're an enemy.
Yeah, the word enemy seems a bit crazy as well.
Bro, this is how they people have literally said, "Devil, you're the enemy." I'm like, raw, all right, cool. I don't even think of you. Let
Yeah, yeah.
alone- But
So are you still working in the industry then, or have you taken a
yeah, I'm still working in the industry. Yeah.
okay? And how is it like? Obviously, I don't know how much you can really speak about it, but things seem like the most volatile they've been in a while, and it seems like journalists, people on YouTube, and games developers are interacting a bit more, but not in the best way. When you're behind closed doors, is there conversation around YouTubers because of how much views they're getting around their games, or is it like sort of disregarded?
I think yes, it exists, but I think with way less weight than they think. More
Okay.
like so and so I can't find my friend, or Sarah, I saw Sarah's not on Twitter, and she's like, oh yeah, she deleted because the online people started attacking her. It's
Mm.
like, oh, those guys. It's like way smaller in that sense. Um, but what gets held with more weight is criticism from people who have balanced and nuanced takes.
Mm.
People have literally pulled up a YouTube video where someone's just like, here is my point of view on this and why I think that, this kind of like is a view that looks like it's emasculating this character, but it's not. But they're not coming from a view of like it's the woke agenda. It's just like these beats in the story I don't think make sense, and more likely that will be respected because you're respecting who you're critiquing.
Hmm. It doesn't feel
Whereas
like a personal attack.
it's not a personal attack. It's about the work.
Yeah.
It's about the product. It's about that stuff. I have literally seen like developers pull that stuff up and be like, but when it's like attacks and stuff, yeah, then it's much more about it's usually dismissed. It's
Yeah.
usually dismissed. And if it isn't dismissed, it's um kind of talked about like a overall problem. It's like, oh, there's a bit of an overall problem
Yeah.
with these people who are often called disingenuous, which I say actually hurts their point of view
Yeah.
because they're not. Someone's gonna crack it. One of these guys is gonna crack it and figure out that you can have really nuanced discussion and not grift for just hate and actually talk about the things that they like, and they'll probably discover that they have a healthy audience. Because another thing I've seen is some of these like quote unquote grifters. I'm gonna start using that word because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
annoying me. But those people who have focused on what they dislike,
Mm.
they sometimes make a pivot and they're like actually talk about a game they do like,
Yeah.
and then they get no views and no likes and nothing because they've curated an audience that are only here to talk about what they dislike.
They're there for the
And
chaos.
so they're there for the chaos only. They don't care about whereas you don't have that. You have an opportunity to talk about, oh, I didn't like this, I didn't like that. But then you can turn around and be like, I like the new tech and updates. I
Mm.
actually think that this nerf in this character is good. Like I'm really like to see where this is going. And
Mm.
your audience are still like, yeah, cool. This is what we're here for. Rather
Yeah,
than be like, why are you not focused on what we hate? I thought we hate Tekken. Why
yeah.
are we talking about like
I think
so?
I've tried my best to make it a thing where I don't want people to see me like as somebody that they can't criticize. I've always told them if you don't like something I've said, tell me and I'll respond to you. But like I know that you only wanted to do 2 hours and we've done three, so I want to be respectful of your time. There's a
Yeah, of
couple more
course.
questions that I wanted to ask you if that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Um, are people in the industry aware of buzzwords that set gamers off? Like, you know, when you hear in an interview, okay, someone said it in the chat just now, and it reminded me, when you hear modern audience, that's like a phrase that immediately makes people raise their eyebrows. Me included as well. I've also raised my eyebrows at it as well. Are they aware of these buzzwords? And if they are aware, are they doing it intentionally sometimes to like either get more views on the particular video because more people are going to spread the video
I don't,
around?
yeah, I don't think it's deliberate. I actually don't think those are buzzwords internally, and they don't
Hmm.
realize that they're buzzwords.
They don't
Do you know what I
realize
mean?
at
Like
all.
yeah, I
Are
don't
you
think
aware
that.
of them?
I even you saying that, I'm learning. I didn't
Okay.
know that. I just thought modern audience was like a benign term. I didn't even. I don't personally even use that term,
Yeah.
but I
Ca-
think
Can I use it in a
I
way
think
to
that
you
there's
that
a
you might?
delay on the what the meaning means to like people outside. Like what it means outside, there's like a catch up of like, oh well, when we use it internally,
Hmm.
we just mean the meanings are different.
Yeah.
The meanings are actually different. Because you saying modern audience is like a red flag almost. Basically, that's what you're saying. Like it's basically a red flag. Just in the same way, if someone says like, we had a DEI consultant on this game,
Hmm.
absolutely red flag. When
Yeah.
I'm internally, I know that means that they may have got people who have forms of disability to try and see if they can change their settings on the control pad so that they can still play the game. Or there may have been like an area in the game where they go to Nicaragua, so they make sure to just ask some Nicaraguan people like, "Hey, is this actually how it looks, or does the dialogue make sense? Would your family use it that way?" And they're like, "No, we don't really use that term. We'd use this instead." They're like, "All right, cool, just change it up." Like, like 90% of what I have seen of like DEI consultancy has been that stuff
Hmm.
because you actually don't have weight as a consultant to change anything. You
Okay.
don't. You can only make suggestions. You can't be like um from the games I've worked on, you can't just be like, yeah, we're gonna make it so you need to add this black character or you need to add this as a woman. Actually, it's the guys making it that had made that decision like most of the time, and then they got in consultants to prop that
Can I
up.
push back on that a little bit just to
Yeah, yeah, of course you can. Of
um
course you can, bro. I'm
the only reason I think people might raise their eyebrows at that is because Kim Belair came out on stage and said that if they don't do as you say, scare them, scare your marketing team into doing as you say,
Kim
which
said that.
Kim said that.
Okay,
It's
I've not.
she's Kim
Yeah, go
Belair
ahead,
said
go
it. She
ahead.
said it on stage, and when I saw that, I was like, maybe they can't just outright change something, but they
They can
can
influence it.
like racketeering, right? Like if you don't pay this
Yeah,
money, then I ain't gonna hurt you, but
yeah.
you might not wake up tomorrow. That sort of thing. Like when she said
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear what you're
yeah,
saying. Yeah, that's
this
why I was really careful to say I personally hadn't seen that. Like, I personally hadn't seen that.
yeah.
Um, but then,
The clips are all over YouTube.
yeah, yeah, I'm not even. I have to be careful because my gut is to, my gut feeling is to defend what that could possibly mean
Mhm,
because I don't know if that was said sarcastically.
mhm,
I don't know if that was to attribute a real problem.
mhm.
Like if for example, if they put in like I don't know, like a Japanese character with like a really like big buck teeth and like really squinty eyes and like was, and then you had to kind of like really shock them into being like, do you not realize how stereotypical and messed up this is?
Yeah.
Like, do you see where
She
I'm coming from?
I hear where you're coming from. The clip
Yeah.
is like it's quite long, but
Okay.
the entire talk is. But that particular clip, if you go and watch the entire thing, she was speaking seriously. She was basically trying to say like, you can push your weight around because we have the power to do so. And
Yeah.
when she did that, I was like, I hear what you're saying, where they can't just come in and be like, you change this to a black character, but they could be like, go on your Twitter now. If you take a look at the audience there, if you don't do as I say, I'm gonna rile them up.
Okay,
So
I don't know. That's mad.
that's
If
how I
it's
took it.
like, yeah, that's mad. If it's like literally I'm holding a gun and I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, like here's the phone, speak to your daughter. Like that's mad.
I would
Of
love to
course.
speak to Kim and ask her what she meant by that because everybody that
Yeah.
saw that, it felt like, in like metaphorically speaking, she's holding a gun, and
Yeah.
if you don't do as I say, I'm gonna pull the trigger, and the woke mob are gonna come after you, as they
Yeah.
like to
That's
say.
funny because I don't know. Working alongside someone like that. And when I say working alongside, it's like very limited interaction. I'm all the way over here in the office.
Mm.
She's remotely from a different country, blah blah blah, and there's like a little bit of back and forth. It's I'm trying to keep in mind that I haven't seen the statement.
Mm-hmm.
Not that's why I'm open. That's why I'm not trying to react to it. Just in the same way that someone could be like, Hypnotic said this. What do you think about him saying this? Or and Endymion or whatever his name is said this. I'm not going to be quick to be like, yeah, and that's why I'm just like, I have to be careful not to straight defend them, but be like, I haven't actually seen everything in full context.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like someone coming in like, I don't know, end of match of the day and be like, oh, have you seen what so and so like, Premier League manager has said about you? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what did he say? It's like, oh, he said this and that. It's like, I'm gonna be careful to hear to make a reply because I actually didn't hear the original statement.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well,
I can't how
Forget Kim Belair, because I don't want to like bring
yeah,
up the video and we sit here and watch it because we're gonna be here for ages. Because there's a lot that she
yeah, of
says in there
course.
that I didn't like. But just take Kim out of it, and let's say that I'm telling you now that it was me,
Hmm.
and that I went up on stage, and what you're saying is true that they can't just come in and change things like that.
Yeah,
But
that's true. They
I
can't
went
just come in and just change
Yeah,
everything.
like I
Yeah.
can't come in and change. Like, let's say for example, I go to my cousin's house. I can't go in there and change anything, but I can sit my cousin down and be like, if you don't do as I say, this is what's gonna happen, and then walk
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Like, if you saw me doing that on stage, you would be like, that seems like you're almost. I don't know if gaslighting is the right word, but almost like manipulating the
yeah.
situation.
You're definitely putting like a heavy level of influence on something. I'm just really careful because I don't know the full context. Because what if what you're saying is, bro, like,
What if I'm chatting shit, basically?
no, it's not what if you're chatting shit. It's what if what you say is a truth.
Mm.
What if you say, like, this is why you don't want to put this in your game? You're gonna get this and that, and this people, like, who are your target audience, you're gonna completely ostracize them. Like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to make like this, this character do this and do that? Like
But that would have been
that.
more well received if she said that. I would have been like, okay, I can hear that. But what she said was like,
Oh.
if you don't basically do as I
Yeah,
say, this is what's gonna happen. And I was a bit like,
yeah,
you're a
sure.
grown woman. You've spoken on podiums before. I've seen you speak, and you know how to speak to people. You were basically threatening the marketing team to do what you say. But forget
Yeah,
Kim. Like if I was saying
yeah,
that, what would you say
yeah.
to
I
me?
hear what you're saying. If that is what's being done, like straight up coercion, that's messed up.
Yeah,
I'm also caveating that with, I cannot know the full situation because, to be honest, some people give me a hard time,
yeah.
like on the left, because they say, like, I'm not like openly like cutting this person down or cutting that person down, and I'm like, I just don't believe that these people should disappear. Like, because I believe in freedom of speech, not freedom of consequences.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, but I'm just really careful not to condemn or so if I haven't seen it. But if it's like what you said, you're
Mm,
someone's just straight up threatening someone. Yeah,
yeah.
that's messed up. Sure,
Yeah.
that's
All
messed
right.
up.
Cool. And one other thing I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this. She's a really like hot topic, uh, piece of conversation online, and she said things that I don't like. But the
Sure.
reason that I haven't thrown her under the bus, and I've told my audience this as well, is that I know somebody exactly like Alyssa McCanty. Everything that I've
Okay.
seen of her online, I know someone personally like that. But when I go and speak to them in private, I always ask them, why are you behaving like this online? You're not this
Mm.
person in real life. You know, it's that whole, talk shit behind the monitor, but then in real life, you're a mouse. And whenever I speak to her, I'm like, why are you talking to people like that online? And whenever I see Alyssa's tweets, I'm like, it's almost a mirror image of my friend. Exactly the same rhetoric. Have you had any contact with Alyssa McCante? And
Yeah, I
what's the
have. I've spoken to
general.
Melissa. I've spoken to Alyssa a few times. Maybe like, yeah, I've spoken to Alyssa a few times. I think what's really messed up is that you should feel safe and free to
Hmm.
say, I don't agree with someone's fundamental premises or their beliefs or the way they go about things without having to flood them with, like, her house has been doxxed. I know that
I
much,
don't agree with that.
you
That's
know,
bullshit.
like, and like she's received like millions of death threats. There's like basically 100 YouTube videos about,
Yeah.
about like, I'm just like, it doesn't really help your case to critique a journalist if that's how you're gonna go about it.
But she's also online challenging people to fights, and I'm like, I don't think you should be doing that on the internet.
She's
I
from New
don't mean
York,
to
bro.
sound, I don't mean to
Like,
sound
yeah,
sexist,
yeah,
but
that's probably not the best. She's from New York, bro.
yeah,
That's
that
how she
seems crazy to me. Like I've told people
like.
before, you shouldn't say things like that online because
That's probably
somebody,
not the best way to go about things.
yeah,
I hear you, but I think it's really hard to say like this person's the problem if you're also not saying it's a problem to dock someone
100% a
and
problem to
send them
dox.
death threats and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
No, I don't think
Like,
anyone should send her death threats, and I don't think anyone should dox, and I definitely don't want her to get hurt. I don't want to wake up in the
yeah,
morning and hear that somebody's gone. I don't have a personal beef with Alyssa. I don't
yeah,
like some of the things she said. I've got Colombian family. Like the Latinas in the family are very very feisty, but I always tell them the same thing. Don't talk shit to guys online. Like I know you're flexing your
yeah.
muscles online, but dude will fold you, right? And that's the same thing that I'd say to her. Like you can
She's
have your
she is who
opinions,
she is, though. She is who she
but
is.
she must
She is.
understand that like these sort of things. Like of course I don't want her to get doxxed. I don't want to get beat up. But if you walk into traffic, you can't be surprised when you get hit. You're
You're
inviting
talking to
that
the wrong
sort of
person, man.
negativity. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
you're
just trying
talking
to
to
get like I didn't know what the sentiment was towards her in the
yeah,
industry.
you're talking to because I also like I said I actually believe in I truly believe you should be free to say what you want as long as you're not causing great harm to people.
You might be
Like,
causing great harm to your family by saying, "Hey, can't find me and I'll fight you." That seems a bit mad to me.
where she's from, that's how you deal with things, I think.
Yeah, but you're
So
from South London, so
yeah, I know, I agree. I wouldn't talk reckless like that to anyone online. That's obviously because I don't take anyone seriously, though. The like you're if you're not in my vicinity, it's like you're not real life almost.
yeah. But imagine going
But
on Facebook or Instagram and talking reckless in South. Like you said, your girl's from Enfield. Talking
yeah.
reckless in Enfield, you'll die.
For sure. I'm not saying that there isn't real consequences to challenging people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I would go about that. I wouldn't get on the microphone and do WWF skits of like that's just not my that's not my motivation.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I also feel like if someone's challenging you first or talking reckless to you, they're also chatting shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Like
100%.
like you should be able to chat shit back too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that,
Like
but
the
not
difference
not
there
challenge
is
people to fights.
someone's an actual journalist
Yeah.
who is like a actual paid journalist and someone isn't. There's almost two different rules for two different people. And that
Mm.
feels weird to me.
I think that Alyssa should be able to fire back verbally, and I'm not even telling her what to do. I've never spoken to her,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't want to. Like, I don't want to. I'm being honest. Like, obviously, I don't want her to get hurt, but I think it's a bit mad for people to be online because there's other people. It's not just Alyssa. There was somebody else called Kate Shepherds or something like that. I can't remember. Um, and they were basically saying that they really want to punch Hypnotic to death, and I was like, these sort of conversations are a bit mad. And these are, I don't know if this individual's in the industry, but it seems like it's getting to a point where you've heard what they say in London, right? Chat shit, get banged.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's
You
getting
can't
to
talk
that.
like that.
It's crazy.
You can't move mad like that. But do you know what he was responding to when he said that? I'm not.
Yeah,
advocating
yeah,
for these things.
yeah.
But
So
he was responding to Hypnotics, basically saying that if you have trans characters in the game, I'm paraphrasing,
mhm.
but oh well, if you're gonna have these trans characters in game, you should be able to have, what was it, an accessory that puts a noose around their neck,
Mhm.
like so,
But
like
didn't he create a character that the game allowed him to create a character where you can put a noose around its neck and then people got offended? And I was like,
no,
well,
that's not
if
what happened. That's not what
no,
happened.
what happened?
No, he
That's what I
created a
saw.
character that was like a trans character that deliberately was designed to look hideous,
Yeah.
and he said that the character's name is Suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, "Oh yeah, well, if I've got, why is it that I'm not seen enough? I should be able to have top surgery, but why can't we add like a suicide feature as well? Because that's what trans is all about, or something to that effect." And then that's what got the hate. Like, because I looked into it, I was like, this doesn't make sense. And then when I saw it, it's like, then he started talking about the suicide rates of trans people. He's like, well, that's who they are. They should be a part of it. So there was like,
Mm.
it's not like people were just mad that he made a trans character.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is kind of where I'm coming from, like, where I was like saying, there's absolutely no nuance where you can just have like, this is how I see it, this is how you see it. It's always like you're saying the most ridiculous, maddest thing
Mm.
that is here to offend or here to call someone out. And people on the other side are reacting to that. Vice versa, both sides. I don't want to be like, both sides are bad. Like, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying, like, this ain't working. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
This ain't working.
Yeah, yeah.
No one's getting what they want. No one's getting what they want. The people who make the games want to be able to communicate with their audience. They have all decided, I'm not communicating with my audience anymore. I decided that I'm not communicating with black developers in the same way because they'll just come up in my mentions,
Mm.
and it's a bit tiring. It's a bit long,
But you kind of
and
are now though, like opening this discourse.
this is a test, bro. This is a test.
Have I
The
passed?
moment the moment I see someone clip something from here
Yeah.
and turn it into content and be like, Dell's lying, he's blah blah. I'm just like, I tried, didn't it? Actually tried to open an avenue where I said maybe this isn't the right way to go about it.
Yeah.
Like that's all I'm saying. I'm
But I
saying
think
that
you're
maybe.
doing the right thing. Like I don't, if people are gonna clip this, 100%, they will take it out of context. But I don't think you should shut yourself off, especially because you know what's going on the inside and you're willing to talk. A lot of people ain't willing to talk.
Yeah, I just don't believe. I just don't believe any good comes from it. Like
I think good
after a
has come
while,
from this. I think talking to
we'll
you
see.
has
We'll
been, it's
see.
been good for me.
Yeah,
I don't, and maybe good for my audience as well,
yeah,
because when I am covering a situation online, like when the whole uglifying your black characters, or like you can't make beautiful black characters, when I saw your tweet about I'm not speaking about this anymore, to me it looked like somebody put duct tape over your mouth. That's how
yeah.
it came
No,
across
because
to me.
that's what the people who said. That's what the people who got first to dictate in the discussion said. Because that's what Grams basically said. He was like, they got to him, they silenced him, and I was like, and so I replied to him, and I was like, that's not what happened.
Mm,
I said I spoke to a lot of black developers who told me to keep talking about like the things I want to, but looking at how the conversation is going, it does, like, I objectively don't think that it makes sense to talk about this stuff because it's not, no one wants to have a conversation. It's not a conversation. It is really difficult to push sometimes a perspective when everyone who's in power or whatever either doesn't see things from your point of view, or they try to whittle things down to a stereotype, or they're too afraid to offend. If you're afraid to offend, you're not really capable of making a product.
yeah.
Like, no one wants to have a hyper sterile product. But I can't have the conversation on Twitter. I literally can't.
You know, Twitter's a
I
cesspool.
literally,
I'm not even I wouldn't do that to someone and say have a conversation on Twitter. It's almost
yeah,
pointless. But these sort of conversations where, because I feel like I can talk to you in person, like and we can have a good conversation about things,
yeah,
and like because you're from around here, I would like if you ever came back to the area, I'd say let's meet up, let's have a chat or whatever. Not even about games, but I think it's good to meet people or talk to people and get to know them because when you're just a Twitter avatar, like I can just see your face and then read your comment. You don't really get to know about the person's personality, and you forget that there's
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
a whole being behind there.
The
So
human behind it.
yeah, I think that you coming on here and speaking to me, even though I'm not as big as these other YouTubers, is good. Like, so people can see that you're a person. You're not just some DEI machine that's spouting whatever people want you to say. So I don't think you
Yeah.
should close yourself off because people are gonna clip you. People are gonna say stuff on Twitter. But I don't think I think that you could be an important voice in like bridging the gap here.
I don't want to if it's gonna tire me out. Like I like to go
Does it really
outside,
tire you
bro.
out?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it definitely tires me out. Yeah, like it definitely tires me out, especially if I'm saying something and I'm like, yo, I think I'm making some movement here. And someone's just like, he's lying, and then that
Yeah.
gets like 10,000 likes. I'm like, oh, let me just go outside. Like it is mentally a bit exhausting because I don't get exhausted if I don't put the effort in.
Can I give
But
you an example? Like I
the
covered
black thing, the black women thing. I feel like I
yeah
should have been able to have a nuanced conversation that was just like, yeah, maybe there could be a conversation about like representation of variations of black women in games because I want some of them to look like baddies too. Like
mm,
I want some of them to be princesses too, and
yeah
there's room for that. Like, but it's sometimes hard to get that through because often if something goes through the filter of like, oh well, we don't want to offend this person or we don't want to offend that person, or maybe they just don't see the value in it, or you're dealing with people who think when they think, oh, we need a character that's a beautiful woman, they can only think of Megan Fox. They
yeah
don't even believe a Japanese woman can be a beautiful woman, or there can be a Halle Berry. Like, you
that's
know what I'm
crazy.
saying? Like, it starts to like affect how your game is even like looks
Yeah
because there's not like diversity of thought. Like I would love to have a good conversation about that and be like, yeah, maybe there can be more nuance and like, yeah, actually, it is really important to have some characters that aren't sexualized because it kind of that you're telling a different story. Like I don't need so and so's grandmother to be in the game and be like in a corset. Like she's
yeah
trying to
yeah
portray a different character. Like, and also it makes it even stronger when you do see the beautiful character because you got like some kind of contrast. Like, I would love to be able to have those conversations. And I think there needs to be those conversations. There needs
yeah
to be a conversation about are we representing like, is there enough white people in the game or whatever that is believable?
yeah.
Like,
But I
like if
don't think
the
you
if
should shut yourself off, bro. Like everything you're saying is true, but if this industry is going to change and you're going to operate in the gaming industry and I'm going to be here doing my thing on YouTube, I think it's
yeah,
important to either us two or our communities to bridge a gap because even if we might not agree on everything, I have a level of respect for you that I assume you have for me as well, and I
yeah,
don't
of
wish any
course.
harm on any of these people even if I don't like their ideas, and I think that if someone like you just shuts yourself off from the conversation, we've just lost somebody from like bridging that gap. And when you say like it's exhausting, that I get it because now that my channel's growing and I'm interacting with people on Twitter from different communities, when
Yeah.
I start seeing a lot of bullshit, I just turn my camera off and I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to my sisters or my brothers or whatever. Like
Yeah,
it
he's just
doesn't
not
bother me.
feeling it no more.
Yeah,
He's
but
just feeling
I
it.
don't get exhausted because I'm like I know that the community I've curated, there's a lot of good people in there, and I'm making connections with people
Yeah.
like you that are good people that I can have conversations with. And there's always going to be people out there that are saying crazy things. Like when I went on to Hypnotic's thing, he was polite to me and everything. We never had an
Yeah,
issue,
his
but
audience was moving mad.
his audience was going crazy. I found it
That's
funny,
why, yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm
That's
from
mad.
North London. Like it's not a big deal for me to like get
Yeah,
those
yeah,
sort of
for
things.
sure.
So when
You,
I saw that, I was like, these are just either they're edgy 15-year-olds or they're just trying to have a good time. It's whatever. Like I turned it off. I went to bed. I texted Hypnotic. I said thanks for having me on. That was it.
yeah, I hear you. I do hear you, but you're also extremely resilient because you have no connection to anything. Like
Mm.
you're kind of self-built in a way where no one's calling up your workplace.
Mm.
No one, do you know what I mean? Like
No,
no
I
one's
hear that.
like
That's
trying
crazy.
to filter it through to other things where like someone's giving you a phone call because it's like, oh, you said this and this has been taken a different way and like because it's never often that someone's like, you said the wrong thing, you have to be quiet. It's more of just like, oh, it's just a shame that these people are calling. Like, is there any way that you could just like make it so when you decide to talk on these things, like I was like, bro, I'm trying to make it
Mm.
nuanced. It was like, all right, we see it, and then I'm often defended.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
people, like a workplace would be like, oh, these people wrote a hate campaign, said we should fire you. You know, this old workplace. Um, the exhaustion comes from the connection because I'm not dealing with people who want to have a conversation.
yeah, yeah. No, I
If
hear that.
people were trying to have a conversation with you, I'd be on these chats all the time. I'd be like, yeah, that's a really good point. Fair enough. I can see what your point of view is. You know, you're saying games in the 90s were more like this. I can understand that that's why you liked it. Have you
Mm.
considered this? You're like, all right, maybe I didn't see it from that point of view.
Hmm.
That's not how the conversations go.
Yeah. No, I completely hear that. I'm not even gonna deny that. I've been on the
Yeah.
receiving end of it, and I'm not even in the industry. So if people are calling up your workplace or doxing you or whatever, even if they don't like you, I think those people are idiots. I would never support any bullshit like that. So I hear that. I'm not on the inside, so I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm speaking like from a place of ignorance.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's ignorance. It's just, a different point of view. But no, I appreciate you like taking the time to chat to me and
No, I appreciate you reaching out, bro. Like I really
yeah.
appreciate you messaging me and asking to come on because I do want to speak to people on the inside and I don't want to attack anyone, and I want them
Yeah.
to know that even if I don't agree with everything, that we can we can be cordial, we can become friends, or we can just chat, you know. But I do appreciate your
Yes.
time, bro. I know I've taken up way more of your time than planned.
Yeah, it's a minor. It's a minor. Like there's been too many conversations in this conversation that probably were overdue,
Yeah, yeah,
And like I said, I know this is gonna get clipped, taken out of context. Someone's gonna make a, a YouTube video, whatever. Depending on how that goes, I might be open to it, but I'm almost not willing to take the effort to create more olive branches if it's
mm.
tiring me out.
Well, if
Like
it's not, if it's okay with you, like if there's something going on, because I've got you on Discord and Twitter and whatever.
yeah, yeah.
If I want to have you back on here, would you be willing to come back on to talk about things?
I would be open to it. Sure. I would be open to it. Yeah, definitely. And I'm like I said, I'm happy to answer questions too. Like I'm not someone who's I'm open.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open. No one can silence me. Like people just like, oh, they silenced him. No one's silencing me, bro. Like
Yeah,
I'm open to having a conversation, but there's certain times I'm just like, yo, too many people chatting shit. Like so
yeah. No, I
that's
hear that.
tiring, but
I hear that. I don't
yeah.
think I think we've covered everything that we need to. I don't think any other like questions have come in. I know
Yeah.
you probably got shit to do, so I appreciate you
Yeah,
coming on,
bro.
bro.
This is for sure, for sure, for sure. All right, bro. Yeah, reach out when you're ready, and yeah, thanks to your chat for the
Jump
most
into
part too.
Tekken streams, man. Come play some Tekken with us.
Yeah, I probably should, with my little Bushin Feng. I should.
Oh, you play Feng as well?
Yeah, that's my character, bro.
Alright,
Yeah,
cool.
I used to be more of a Asuka player, but I feel like I don't know, man. The way the game's so aggressive, that defensive style of play isn't
Yeah, yeah,
popping like it used to be. Because that
yeah.
was my Tekken 5 character for sure. But
Yeah, it's a bit much. But on Sundays we stream, so if you ever or like tomorrow we're doing Sparking Zero. So if you ever want to drop in, just let me know. I'll put you in the tournaments or whatever.
yeah, man, of course. All right, then I'll mess you. We'll figure something out.
Alright, bro. Have a good day.
All right, brother. All
Alright,
right, peace.
safe. Alright, guys. Well, that was Del Walker. I really enjoyed that chat. I think it's important to have conversations like that. Um, yeah. Was there any other questions that you guys had regarding this that you wanted to ask me? I wanna host more conversations like that because I do feel like there's way too much attacking going on right now. I feel like there's way too many people at each other's necks, and I think it's better to just have conversations with them. And that's why I said what I said about Alyssa. Like I might not like everything that she says, and having someone that's grown up with a lot of women around them, I would never advise a woman to go online saying "come fight me." I know she's from New York. That seems crazy to me though, but I don't want any harm to come to these people. I definitely don't sit in the same um, camp as some of these other YouTubers that are just saying crazy shit about people. I think that's not helpful in any way. But I appreciate you guys stopping into the stream. Was there any questions that you guys had for me at all? This went way over. It was meant to be a it was meant to be a 2 hour stream. It's almost 4 hours now. That was pretty much everything you needed. Well, I'm glad that I covered everyone's basis. I saw some YouTubers in here earlier. Sorry, I couldn't respond to everyone's messages. I was trying to concentrate on Dell. It's refreshing hearing conversations like this without constantly being at each other's throats. You got a question, Sophie? Yeah, go for it, bro. What can? Oh, I'll smack you up. I'll smack you, bro. Don't even know why I entertained that. I think you and Mugen Lord should have a conversation. I would be interesting you guys as normies that do have criticism to talk about and go in depth into topics and where you guys come from. Yeah, I'm open to talk to anyone, guys. I'm happy to speak to anybody. I don't care about their chats like attacking me. I'll go on their shows. It's all good. So if you guys have recommendations or anyone that like you want me to talk to, I'll talk to them. I want to speak to Abu Bakr personally. I'd like to speak to Abu Bakr, but I know he's a busy guy. Even other journalists, bro. I would like to speak to IGN journalists. I'm not gonna attack them or anything, but I do have questions. I have a lot of questions about IGN and their scoring systems and whatnot. I do think that the way they score things is really, really weird. Doesn't make any sense to me. I've disagreed with Dell on Twitter before, but I'm all for hearing opposing opinions. Yeah, do you know, bro? I disagree with my best friend. Ellie's one of my closest people. Like we're tight, we're almost inseparable, but we disagree on almost everything. Literally, before this interview started, me and her were arguing about female representation in games, but like we're tight, and we've always been like that. Or even like some of my boys, I've got some boys that are like they completely. Whoops. Let me open up another window. Sorry about that, guys. We completely disagree. I completely disagree with some of the things that they say, but we're boys, like we're tight. And it started off that way. I've met people that I completely disagree with, but I'm still cool with them. I don't understand why there's all this attacking constantly. It doesn't really make any sense. Sometimes I understand it. Like sometimes someone will say something so insane and you're like, what the fuck did you just say? You know, human reactions and all that. I'm not saying everybody's got to be singing Kumbaya, but some of it is just it's a bit too much. Like, you guys have roasted me multiple times. Do you guys remember that bad take I had with the chocolate brownie on Tekken? Even I watched that video back to this day and I sit down, I'm like, what were you thinking? That was one of the videos where I saw the information and I didn't think it through properly. I was like, I don't have anything to talk about today. This seems like an interesting conversation, but I should have taken the time to sit and actually think about it. Because when I sat and thought about it and I read your comments, I was like, do you know what? These guys are actually right. I think I'm in the wrong on this situation. I didn't budge on it completely, but there was definitely some issues that occurred with what I said. Yeah, it's okay to have issues with things that people say, but it's always important as long as they're not disrespecting you. Don't disrespect them. There's no need for that. The idea that we all need to agree with everything is concerning. Very, very true. Hey, what's going on, Will? How you doing, bro? Sorry I haven't replied to your messages. I've been all over the place. I've got to set up the Sparking Zero stream for tomorrow, and I've got a video that I need to do as well. So, been a bit all over the place. Now, guys, I know that some of you are sitting here in the chat and you're not saying anything. So, before we end the stream, I've got some not Xbox, Game Pass vouchers. I have Game Pass vouchers here. If anybody would like a voucher, this will give you 1 month free Game Pass. So if there's anybody that wants to game on the PC for free, what I'm gonna do, this is gonna be pretty crazy, is I'm gonna hold the code up to the screen. I'm gonna hold the code up to the screen. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 codes here. I'm gonna put them up to the screen. It's probably going to be inverted, but you're gonna have to take a snapshot of them, and whoever gets them gets them. So I'm gonna start. Everyone ready? Everyone ready? Okay, you got your cameras ready? Your screenshots ready? 3. They're not fake, they're real. It gives you 1 month for free. It gives you 1 month for free. It's not a... If you've already had Game Pass before, it's fine. They will still work. It stacks. It can, and I think it's for EU only. So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna do 5 of them. Okay. Is that? Can you guys see that? Can you even see that? You can't even see that, can you? You can't even see that. All right. We'll do it a different way. Can you guys see that on? Can you guys see that on camera? Turned into a game show. I don't think. Right. I don't think you can see it. My bad. The screen quality's. The screen, yeah, it's blurry. I don't know why. I'm on Discord right now. Okay, I'll do one of them. I'm gonna read it out. I'm gonna read it out, and then the first person to get it wins, and then I'm gonna cut the stream. Okay. Code is T for Tango, F for Foxtrot, F for Foxtrot, 4, X for X-ray, 2, K for Kilo, 2, F for Foxtrot, 2, 2, 6, T for Tango, P for Papa, 6, 9, C for Charlie, 6, F for Foxtrot, T for Tango, Q for Quebec, F for Foxtrot, Y for Yankee, 4, Z for Zulu. Or Zebra. One of them. I can't remember which one it was. I haven't done phonetic alphabet in a while. I don't know who won that, but one of you won it. So. Alright guys, well, thank you so much for tuning into the stream. I had a really, really good time. Thanks for all the super chat donations. It was very much appreciated. There's going to be a stream tomorrow at 7 p.m. UK time. It will be for Sparking Zero. It will be for a tournament. If you guys want to join the tournament, just show up to the stream. And yeah, I'll add you in and we'll have some fun on Sparking Zero. And if you have any questions you want to ask me, then feel free to ask me. Outside of that, guys, again, thank you so much for joining. Love you all. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Take care and peace.